와, 야 호진이 형이랑 팀하면 이런 느낌이구나.
좀 든든하지.
든든해.
시대를 통해서 과연 어떤 그림들이 만들어질지 지금부터 본격적인 경기를 내계신 여러분들 박수와 함께 지금부터 시작해보겠습니다.
아 여보세요?
네.
야 보스.
됐다.
나야.
야 명수야.
네?
긴장하자. 천천히 해라.
네.
잘하자.
재밌을 것 같아 진짜로.
그래 야 그 생각으로 즐기자고.
와 나 3년 만이야 3년 만. 개 재밌어.
너 3년 만이야?
네.
형도 3년 만이야.
형, 너 2년 만이죠 형.
형 3년 가까이 됐어. 은퇴하고 3년 만이라고 너는. 나는
맞네.
너는 예선을 나왔으니까 떨어진 거잖아.
시작한다.
즐기자!
네.
역시 리브 샌드박스는 멀티 포지션을 운영하면서 어떤 선수가 어떤 포지션에
뒤에 막아놨어. 뒤에 돌 막아놨어.
찬다.
죽였다.
나이스.
죽었다. 괜찮아 이득이야 이득. 팔고 인수 팔고. 저 짧아. 먼저 가야 돼. 아유.
들어. 일단 해볼게.
스피드를 보호할 필요가 없이 혼자서 그냥 무쌍.
저 일단 2대1이에요. 일단 하면 이겨요.
필요가 있었는데 호준 이거 눈치채고 도망갔어요. 일이 수상하게 되거든요 호준.
그러면 500m
옵니다. 이제 400.
1-3만.
나이스. 나 일단다.
그대로 올라갑니다. 센세이션.
제발이야 제발. 호진이 형.
나야.
와 호진이 형.
아 이제 하지.
실전 봐.
맞았다.
와, 야 호진이 형이랑 팀하면 이런 느낌이구나.
좀 든든하지.
든든해.
자, 현재까지 닐입니다. 닐도 사실상 최근에 가장 임팩트 있는 모습을 보였던 선수 중 한 명인데 현재 라운드가 좀 애매했거든요.
천천히 쫓아. 그냥 앞에 있어봐.
이런 부분이 중요하겠습니다. 드래프트 타이밍 조절합니다.
죽였어.
나이스. 팔고.
봐봐.
호준도 퍼센트를 믿는 거.
보고 있어. 앞에서. 나이스. 갈게.
잡았다. 7. 1-3만.
왼쪽.
1-3만.
리브 샌드박스가 이렇게 들어옵니다.
나이스.
두 평행 세계를 다투었던 팀들이 카트라이더 드리프트라는 무대에서 만나게 됐습니다. 과연 첫 승리를 가져갈 팀은 어떤 팀이 될지 지금 바로 출발합니다.
구호 한번 할까? 시작하기 전에.
시작할 때 하자. 시작할 때.
한번 로딩 창 딱 뜰 때 내가 먼저 하나 둘 셋 락스 하면 화이팅 하자. 오케이.
오 화이팅 크게 할겨?
얘네들은 그런 스타일 아니야.
그래? 성량이 크지가 않아.
할때도 해.
우리 진짜 절대 쫄지 말자.
오케이.
예, 하나 둘 셋 락스!
이거
화이팅!
러너가 4명인 팀도 굉장히 무섭지만 스위퍼가 가능한 선수가 4명이 있다는 게 광동 프릭스의 가장 큰 장점이거든요.
가봐 먼저.
막는다.
배가는 어쨌든 저도 불러주기 있어가지고.
방금 전에
내가
들어가
할게. 뒤에 상대 해파 일단.
자력으로 둥지가 뚫어야 되는 상황이 됐습니다.
쏠 수 있어.
나도 왔다. 2, 3 다 먹어갖고.
일단 밟을게.
작업이야 얘. 박았어 얘.
나이스. 일단 가.
앞에 차 이거. 나 파이팅이다 이거.
일단 잡아놨어.
형 봐봐. 그대로 가. 나 이거 6대6.
좀 더 봐야 돼요. 살짝 막아주는 스피어.
자, 얼마 남지 않았습니다. 성빈이 올라갑니다. 성빈 아니면 도치가 올라가는 도치
두치인가요?
올라가는데 포인트는 락스.
하이파이브.
엎대지 마.
다운.
나 하나 뚫었어.
막아놨어. 나이스. 1 주행만. 앞에 1대1해.
나 드랩 빨았어.
가 먼저.
나 빨리 갈게.
막아놨다.
가봐. 나이스.
라인 블록이 훌륭한데요 지속적으로. 컨베이어 벨트 구간에 원투만 보호할 수 있으면 진짜 좋은 거거든요. 락스 입장에서는. 성빈 과감하게
피했어.
이건 좋은데 수리 자체가 안 좋아요.
안전하게만 해줘.
락스 그냥 먹게 생겼어요. 성빈이 깨지 못합니다.
나이스 김도찌. 나이스 김도.
나이스. 우리 잘했다 진짜.
잘했어.
술이 먹혀서 터질 뻔했는데 우리가 잡았어.
나비, 록, 히어로, 시즈 그리고 택이 여기 있어요. 택 바로 마리, 민식, 애시드 플라이, 스칼렛 렌즈예요.
그냥 너무 부담 갖지 말고 편하게 집이라 생각하고 해야겠다. 특히 성경준. 네. 현이 형 브리핑만 잘하자. 그냥 우리 할 건 맞아. 최대한 브리핑 그려줄게.
나도 그려줄게.
우리 마지막에 그 콜만 맞추고 천천히 좀 침착하게 하면 될 것 같은데.
가보자. 화이팅!
시끄러.
이 1세트 아이템전 첫 번째 라운드는 팩토리 브로디의 춤소입니다. 이어서 달려보시죠.
번개 바로 할까?
번개 해봐. 4
번개
이볼래?
했어.
나 미사일 떠.
번개 일단 안 맞아.
너 부스 질렀어.
일정아 더 쏴줄게. 물 줘. 파리. 나이 떴어. 1등 떴어. 다시 템 챙겨와.
뒤에 물 보이나?
나 안
봐줄게.
보여. 나 못 가.
아.
뭐야?
우리 저 앞에 줘.
오케이. 형 나 부스 하나임. 일단 빨아주면 좋아요.
잡아내야 돼요.
천사로 넘어갑니다. 천사로 넘어가는데
내 1등 볼게. 빨았어.
넣을 수 있어 이 트랙.
노기
형 나봐.
노기
첫.
알아도?
네. 파이팅 형.
나이스.
어이. 투구 나가. 나 놀랬어. 질 뻔했어.
역시 1팩이야.
형 마이크 좀만 더 붙여주세요.
눈 감고 마이트 컨트롤하고 있어.
오케이.
성형조 4명이라고 생각하고 있어.
그걸 너무 잘하는 거 아닌가?
야, 그럼 거의 우승 못하는.
플레이 썸을 얻어 맞다 보니까 지금 렌즈도 바빠졌어요.
그렇죠. 그리고 주요 아이템을 많이 들고 있어.
모자나 우승이야?
나이스. 나 이거 어디서 할 거냐면 1렙 마지막 오르막에서 해볼게.
알았어. 가자 이거 선사 형 먼저 해도 돼?
네, 먼저 하셔도 돼요.
번개 가는 거 안 보여.
뒤에
이렇게
열려.
할까?
번개 해봐
잠깐만
그냥.
할게.
되게.
어.
하나 쓸게 이거
상찬이야 상찬. 기계다.
형 먼저 해봐.
이거 이대로 가자. 아우디 분 챙겨놔.
한 대 맞을 거.
맞아도 돼. 다 붙었어. 1등까지 버리.
역전만 하는 것이 아니라 피니시 라인 직전에서 자석을 쓰는 상대방을 밀어내는 몸싸움도 보여줄 수 있거든요. 분명히 아우라라면 가능할 수 있습니다.
이 빨간 거 챙겨오세요.
내가 못 챙길게.
너 챙겨. 너 챙겨.
챙겼어요.
이거
내가 이거 다원이 빨고
나오게
날라갈게.
해봐.
나 안 맞을 거야. 왜라
아.
빨아. 끝나고 나 스칼렛 띄울게.
지금 안 열린다. 뒤에는 몰라. 뒤에 열릴 수도.
번개 해볼래? 첫. 연결
번개
이거.
쓸게.
패치. 내가 1등 빨게. 상대로 빨렸어.
빨아줄게. 끝까지.
렌즈 렌즈 노 갑자기 우와.
나이스.
나이스. 나 템.
보여준다. 나 짜부가 안 나와.
손정중이 나 죽이고 갔어. 저 씨.
형이에요?
나이스.
짜부였는데. 근데 우준아 형 너가 나 안 죽였으면 우리
그죠. 형이랑 저랑 날라갔을 듯.
It's a good night to be a Kartrider Drift League fan because myself and Peter are going to be bringing you guys 2 team matches worth of action and our second match of the round of 16 for individual players in the solo match. So it's going to be a good night. Got a lot of Kartrider action coming at you guys.
We got the exact same format as yesterday, and we've had so many good matches and perfect moments that we want to keep highlighting, and I hope we get some more today.
I think we definitely will. We've seen a lot of really exciting moments, I think, towards the middle of our tournament here. At the beginning, I think people were still adjusting to Kartrider Drift. We had a lot of old players struggling at the beginning, but finally finding their footing. A lot of new rising stars. So really, I mean, anything could happen today.
Anything, and I hope everything that we've seen so far in terms of clutch moments happen as we take a look at the team match overview. We are still in the main stage right now, going through the round robins between 8 teams. And of course, they're all fighting for that top 4 spot to be able to move on to the postseason. There are 3 matches prepared for them, where the winner will be able to win a 40 million Korean won prize pool.
Yeah, a lot of money on the line here. Here are our standings. And right now, Kwangdong Freaks heavily in the lead, but Aura playing against Liiv SANDBOX today. This is a huge match for the standings because if Aura wins this, they'll move up to 4-1. It'll put Liiv SANDBOX at 2-2, and Liiv SANDBOX will fall pretty heavily down to 3rd place. A team that was really considered our favorites for this tournament, not performing as consistently, especially with what's going on with SUNGBIN right now. We'll talk about that a little bit later. That's our first matchup of the night. Second matchup will be between ROX and Finale, and then we'll have, of course, our solo match.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I am really excited for Liiv SANDBOX versus Aura because if Liiv SANDBOX truly loses today, that means they're actually going to now struggle to even maintain that top 4 position. And no one coming into KDL Preseason was going to expect that to happen. And of course, for match number 18, ROX versus FNL is going to be pretty much all about who is going to continue their momentum, continuing the positive streaks and ending the negatives.
Exactly. And for ROX, it's really finding out about whether they can start to put that item mode to the test, because Finale have a very strong item ace in Banana. But talking about our first matchup again here, tournament favorites Liiv SANDBOX having a bit of a struggle in their last series. It was against Kwangdong Freaks, our currently first place team here in KDL. But at the same time, you have to consider that they had Sunga out. He wasn't able to play. JiMin was stepping in. But JiMin will also be stepping in today, filling the sweeper role because Sunga is back, but he's not feeling well enough to participate until we get to the item mode. He's feeling more comfortable there. That's why you'll see today he's listed as the item ace, JiMin as sweeper.
Yeah, when we see that Sunga didn't even enter the race this time. He is waiting for that item mode entry. And honestly, Aura, they have no problems right now in their roster. If anything, they're starting to have their teamwork get even better. So I'm really feeling like this is going to be a very evenly matched lineup.
Jong has also been extremely successful in terms of, some of the item aces. I'm sorry, I mentioned Jong. I meant to say Hero.
Yeah.
In terms of what he has been able to accomplish so far, only playing the 1 and losing to Hojun, but he's such a successful player that if it does go to ace and we see NEAL struggle, then we could see that upset happen again. Because for me, looking at this one, I think speed still definitely could go to Liiv SANDBOX here, even with the lack of Sungha. But we'll have to see how they perform on the day, because Aura has just had such a fantastic time with their teamwork when it comes to the speed race. And Plansy, you look at some of these players, Plansy's Banana, these are the players that I think are the best item aces today. But Tech had a really great performance, actually, just last time around. So we'll see how Sungha does as he steps into the item ace position. It's not going to be something he's necessarily comfortable with today.
Hopefully, he'll be able to find that comfort very soon. Sungha now taking on the stage. We can see the average ranking for the players in Liiv SANDBOX. Very high for Hyunsu and Sungha, sitting at 2nd and 3rd each. Attacks per minute and defenses, it's about middle of the pack. They do it only when it's necessary.
Yeah, it's a good point. We'll show you fast and furious driving.
Nice. That is a lot of confidence, and I hope I see some of that fast and furious driving as well. I love it, especially when our players switch it up between running and sweeping. All of a sudden they might do a crazy 360 out of nowhere and knock 3 people out.
Yeah, yesterday we saw Spear with some actual incredible plays. Definitely one of my favorite players to watch so far this tournament. Players showing their names here up to the camera. Hero, the ace player so far for this team. Knock has been so consistent, even performing extremely well in the solo competition. And you still don't know who we are, but we're demonstrated professional performance by victory. The nickname there, Aura, of course, kind of jokingly used there in the pun of their taunt there. So kind of hard to explain in English, but very clever. And here's their message, of course, over to Liiv SANDBOX.
When you played against Kwangdong Freaks, you didn't look like a sandbox, but a sandbag. Be your sandbag as well. I like that.
Yeah. And it's true to a certain extent. It stings for Liiv SANDBOX fans, but their performance was fairly muted, last time around. And it wasn't just about Sungha not being there. The teamwork fell apart a little bit. You didn't see NEAL perform up to standards in the ace match. So we'll have to see if they can tighten it up tonight, as we do have our speed track list here. Gold Rush will be where we're starting. It's Aura's map pick. Then we're going to New York Rally, Boostwood, Terracotta Twister a little bit later than usual here, and then Pharaoh's Pass.
We've certainly seen a lot of Terracotta Twister being picked for round number 1, but Liiv SANDBOX choosing to favor that for their 2nd pick. And of course, the bands coming out from Liiv SANDBOX on rickety rails, winding slopes. These tracks are definitely tricky. They have a lot of turns. And then for Aura, we have Zigzag Timberland and Bayside Bridge Run.
So we have a pretty standard set of tracks here, actually, for speed. We're not really getting too into the really complex ones, like windy slopes, rickety rails, and Zigzag Timberland. Those 3 in particular are quite complex, so kind of lowering the ceiling in a little, in some ways lowering the ceiling of what we're going to see here, potentially.
Yeah, and our fan from SANDBOX giving a little punch and a thumbs up to the camera. We love it. Aura fan, Aura's ace. They're mentioning the players that they are so good that they're an ace.
Yeah.
Since when did we have a rival? This is like a Korean thing where you take a word and you put 3 different letters, but we have global fans coming in for the first time into our KDL.
Amazing to see that we're seeing now global fans actually coming down to the arena to watch Kart Rider live. A league that has fans now all around the world, Peter. But we're starting off our first series of the night. Liiv SANDBOX versus Aura. Our first track will be Mine, Gold Rush. Off we go. Hero, the current track leader in terms of the record right now. Starting off here as we move into this first turn. Hyunsu and NEAL taking the lead.
We have Knock and Seas with that 2-3 trying to contest NEAL, but of course Liiv SANDBOX is going to have their comeback coming in real soon to support NEAL. It doesn't really seem like a lot of things are going on right now. A lot of players are just trying to contest for that top position.
Yeah, right now, Liiv SANDBOX in firm control. Knock the only one here in top 4 right now. So Seas is going to need to try to move up here with Na'Vi to contest the back of this pack, or it is just simply going to be a Liiv SANDBOX controlled victory here. As Knock alone is a fantastic player in these types of scenarios, but alone 1v3, there's not a lot he can do. He's actually going to try to push up to pole position here, take that first place spot away so the rest of his team can catch up, but they're not pulling the weight. Seas and Hero very far behind right now, as you can see.
Yeah, and NEAL is not giving the giraffe range at all for Knock. Knock does somehow manage to find the lead. That first place spot gives a lot of breathing room for Aura, but if you look at the standings, all 3 members of Aura are being blocked out by Insu and JiMin right now. This is not looking good.
Yeah, it really is not. Look at the blocks coming through here from Insu. He's just preventing anybody from coming through. He's sweeping extremely well here. And so despite Knock's consistent performance here, he alone isn't going to be able to get it done. Hero needs to actually cross that barrier. Yep. It's not happening right now as Insu does fall back, but now JiMin is the one who's causing the problems here.
Hero and Seas, they got the draft off of each other, so it gave room for Hero to finally get up in the top 5 until that happened.
Yeah, Hyunsu getting the knock there. Looked like JiMin as well helping out, pushing the back, and that's that, man. This is just all as she writes for this one, it looks like. I mean, so difficult to catch up here. Knock making a final push here. Na'Vi as well, but it's going to be a 1-2, and just such fantastic defensive play here from Liiv SANDBOX. And they're going to take this first race, and this is the form that you wanted to see from them in that race against Kwangdong Freaks. Is JiMin looked a little bit less comfortable there in a team scenario, but today looking fantastic, and that's really important when you consider he's going to be playing his solo match later on tonight too, so maintaining that form is so important.
A complete overwhelming 1-2 from Liiv SANDBOX. There was a lot of attempt from Aura. They tried to get Hero up there to support Knock, but Na'Vi and Seas really struggled to keep up, and they hit a lot of obstacles and also great blocks from Liiv SANDBOX, and it was pretty much over by that point.
Yeah. Looks like both Hyunsu and JiMin had a part in that final defensive push around that final turn where the corner was hit, and they had multiple collisions there, Aura did. Still a good recovery, but with that much of a lead, even if you push into 3, 4, 5, or, you know, subsequently the best places you can get, because the top 2 spots are occupied by Liiv SANDBOX, you can't win. Even if you actually get the pass and you recover from there, if you create enough distance for 1-2, that's a victory condition. That's all you need to win team speed.
Yep, and Hero, he usually has a great synergy with Knox, so we need to see that come in as we take a look at the replay. This is the moment where
Seas just isn't able to make the jump on this one.
Yep.
That's rough.
Seas, he pretty much solidified his 8th place standing once he crashed into that wall. NEAL's form is crazy.
Yeah, it's a bit of a meme in Korea, but it is such a true statement about NEAL in this case. As Peter, it's time to move to the second track of this series. World Tour New York Rally will be our track to see if Aura can bounce back and tie us up.
Begin our speed round number 2 between Liiv SANDBOX and Aura. Liiv SANDBOX 1-0 up right now.
This is a track that I always associate with NEAL because he's had great performances on it thus far, and you know, it's a one that he seems very, very comfortable with. He is currently holding the 8th place spot, but we see this from NEAL a lot on this track where he actually occupies a later spot, then comes up for a later attack towards the end of this single lap track. So keep an eye on him in those positions. He doesn't always actually stay here in the back. He actually can take some aggressive wide turns here and create some disruption.
Right, and we have that knock and seize combo looking a lot better for Aura this time around. However, NEAL sitting in 8th place is always a bit suspicious because you know he's going to be doing a lot of sweeping and all of a sudden make it to the top 5 out of nowhere. So far, Aura with a sizable lead.
Yeah, the 1-3-4 win condition is real right now. NEAL actually needs to successfully close that gap. We've talked about how he often does, but right now Hero is doing a great job of locking him out here. And with Seize and Knock here just constantly actually covering both angles, NEAL's really struggling to break through.
Hero with another fantastic block on both JiMin and NEAL. He's keeping 2 players at bay, buying a lot of time for Knock and Seize at the front with Hyunsu. And I'm sure Hyunsu's going to get caught up by Knock real soon.
Yeah, holding that 1-2 right now. This is so tight here. As here comes NEAL. This is what I'm talking about. He does it at the last second every single time. All he needs to do is to break into one of these 2 spots in the last 500 meters. He's looking for the attack, but he's out of draft range.
The NEAL build trying to break the 1-2, but Knock staying completely out of the draft range is going to be able to secure that win for Aura. A nice comeback from them.
Yeah, really nice comeback, a big bounce back, and it looked like maybe NEAL was going to be able to do it because he's just so good at that final leg of this track, but the distance was too great. They weren't in draft range, so he had to just take some aggressive inners, but he's also then bumping into his teammates right when he's going around those corners. If you try to take really, really aggressive corners there, it can sometimes come back to bite you, but Seize and Knock just maintaining the lead. And it's a new track record for Seize, the player who actually had an unfortunate miss on the ramp, then really bouncing back in a big way here to set the new record.
Yeah, what was really interesting to see was that the players of Liiv SANDBOX all had more than 40 drifts, while Aura had only 30-something. So it showed how dominating they were, just really not even needing to boost up or build up that boost gauge much because they were already so far in the lead, and they were really unshakable this time.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you mentioned. And you know, when you have control and you have the team play to support it, especially players like Nog, it is going to be very difficult to crack through, even for a player like NEAL. Such an exciting series thus far. We're tied up 1-1 as we find out which team is going to take the lead on World Tour Boostwood. Off we go. We are tied up 1 apiece between Liiv SANDBOX and Aura here as we move into Boostwood, our 2-lap track.
We see our players all doing a lot of instant boosting here to try to build themselves a lead. Insu and Hyunsu firmly in that top 2 position, the Park Soo duo we call them in Korea.
Yeah, really like the strategy we're seeing with NEAL and JiMin here, hanging back here to avoid collisions and seeing if they could actually find kind of an opportunistic angle rather than trying to get through to some of these choke points and constantly collide, just waiting for a chance and using the opponent's group up against them actually and trying to play very passively. But it wasn't successful on the previous track. We'll see if they can find that success this time around because right now, again, Aura in pretty nice control.
A lot of body battling going on, collisions happening left and right, but it is Aura who keep managing to find that 1-2-3 angle. Insu and Hyunsu doing all they can, staying within draft range of each other.
NEAL here trying to take this aggressive inner as we move into the second lap here. Now he's had enough of hanging back. He's going to push up forward here. And right now it's still in control of Aura with Insu and JiMin at the back of the pack here. Hero doing some great defensive steps. And Knock, he's the scariest player to have in the top 4 like this because he does so much.
Yep, and we saw Navi manage to find a way to break through the defense of NEAL. Now Aura has 3 members up there. Of course, now Liiv SANDBOX. NEAL coming into first place.
Yeah, NEAL just pushing up here at the last moment. Still in the lead now, Liiv SANDBOX with his final push here. Insu's taking some very wide angles here, trying to find that push through himself. And this is so close right now, just 1 point ahead right now for Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, that angle didn't really work out for Insu, but our players at the front, Liiv SANDBOX, there's 3 members trying to beat out the 2 members of Aura. We are coming into the last few steps. Navi holding that first place position, and Hyunsu couldn't break that lead, and 2-3-5-6 is going to lead to a victory for Liiv SANDBOX.
I love the angle our observers took on C's there, because that's the moment you could just feel in some of these speed races for team, the frustration of, I have one chance, I have one approach angle I can try to look for, but their defensive setup is so good that you could just see C's is like, what angle do I take? There are no angles. And then you see JiMin and Hyunsu actually take that 2-3. So it's a 2-3-5 victory here for Liiv Sandbox. A close race though, very back and forth. But ultimately, that final push for Liiv Sandbox was enough. Insu, his push in particular didn't work, but they even had him as a backup plan. This team is so good at attacking in those final 500 meters.
Yeah, the 500 meters was when they absolutely all were just in collision, and they were not really giving up the ranks to Aura at all whatsoever. That 2-3 position being held so beautifully as we take a look at some of the replay. This is the outer lines that we talked about with Insu. He kept going off on his own path.
Yeah, and that's the kind of insurance plan, so to speak, that Liiv Sandbox always affords them. And it can look misleading when you see how NEAL and JiMin play, because they're an unusual duo as well, who don't normally, of course, race together. It's only because Sungha is ill, but when you see the way they play together and coming for those final pushes, you can see there's a clear strategy here for Liiv Sandbox. They're not falling behind, they're intentionally behind. But we'll see if we can tie this one up as we move into World Tour Terracotta Twister.
Speed round number 4, Liiv Sandbox ahead 2-1 over Aura.
Yeah, very strong start here for Insu. You can see Hyunsu actually taking an aggressive inner there, but he is blocked out by Nok, who is just so good. His situational awareness is so famous here to the Korean fans of the Kart Rider Drift League, and now he's pushed his way into first.
Call him the super observer mode. He stays out of trouble and he just observes what's going on and somehow manages to break into first, which is what he's pretty much doing right now. Insu, however, manages to find the breakthrough angle. It's going a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, a lot of back and forth here. Now is a great opportunity for Liiv Sandbox here as we move into the inner part of this track to grab some drafts and make for a big push here. But Navi and Nok taking some very aggressive inners here. That was really risky there from Navi, but he's going to pay off actually. And he and Nok still firmly in the lead right now. Unfortunately for them, they don't have a sweeper in position right now, and this is where things get scary. You hit that second lap, that's when Liiv Sandbox goes on the attack. But without Hero or C's anywhere nearby, it's going to be very difficult to defend.
Yep. Nok tried to tackle Hyunsu there, but he couldn't get him to lose his momentum. Somehow, Nok still managed to find a better angle to come into second place again. A lot of priority being placed right now on Nok, trying to keep Navi in first place.
Yeah, but unfortunately, this is going to potentially lose a lot of control for them. If Hyunsu takes first place here, that's all they need. As Hero making a final push here too, Insu needs to watch his sweeping here. Because if Hero passes him, that is going to be Aura taking this for sure. They're still in the lead, in fact, at this moment in time.
And here comes NEAL out of nowhere right now. We have
so
two
close
players for each team in the top ranks. Hyunsu now with a sizable lead, but Hero, he's trying to do what he can, and Insu with the fantastic blocks, keeping him from going too far.
It's really about that first place spot. No one can catch Hyunsu. As Hero is making a run for it here.
Insu with the super tight line, trying to come in. Navi, he manages to boop him back, and it's Liiv Sandbox who come in ahead with the 1-3-4.
Yeah, unfortunately for Aura, even though they had control of the middle of the pack, they didn't have anyone in first place, so the 1-3-4 win condition you just mentioned was what they really needed to crack, and they just weren't able to do it. It was so close, though, very back and forth, and I really did like Hero's last push there. He almost was able to take control, but Hyunsu ultimately did have a great mastery of this track. I think definitely the most consistent player here for Liiv Sandbox this time around, and that is going to be Speed going over to Liiv Sandbox here. So a huge bounce back after what was an unfortunate loss to Kwangdong Freaks. Now, the series isn't over by any means, but taking a 3-1 dominant victory here over Aura without Sungha really feels like Liiv Sandbox have prepared much better. Felt like more of an emergency situation last time. This time, they're better prepared.
Yeah, they had more time to prepare with their new teammate. You know, playing without Sungha, it was definitely a big adjustment to make, but certainly we've seen that Liiv Sandbox, they cannot be slowed down for too long as we now move on into our item mode where NEAL will be swapped out for Sungha to finally come back into the team.
Yeah, so, you know, keeping both Sungha and JiMin in, this is a question that I had going into this because Seungha's technically listed as the item ace today, but JiMin is normally the item ace, so I was wondering, oh wow, are there too many voices actually? Will Seungha just come in for JiMin? They'll give him an opportunity to play item ace since he's been focusing on that and JiMin's been focusing on solos. They're actually both going to be in here, so this means that Seungha's definitely, you know, coming in prepared for item, but I think JiMin is still technically going to be the shot caller here.
And of course for Aura, we have Tech, the trustworthy shot caller in item mode. He has done so much for his team Aura. They are having such a dominating performance so far in the KDL preseason. Usually when they lose speed, they've always won item, and that's their secret recipe to having a 3-1 standing.
Yeah, it's a really good point. You know, I feel like his moves and his plays as the item ace have been less impressive or less flashy, let's say, than some of the other players like I was mentioning, Plansy, Banana, who will be playing later on tonight. But I think he's secretly kind of OP. Like, he's actually secretly maybe the best one, and it's given this team so much success.
Yep, and speaking of, we have a fan for Tech coming in saying he's the best. And we agree. He's been so far so formidable in the item mode as we take a look at the track list. Gangnam Street's being picked by Liiv SANDBOX along with Brody's Gloom, Magma Cavern. Aura, on the other hand, opting for London Night and Polar Halfpipe.
Yeah, Polar Halfpipe is one of, I think, the most controversial maps in our item track list. It's banned a lot, but it's also picked, you know, usually by the team that you think is the underdog oftentimes if it isn't banned by the favorite.
Right.
But Glacier Icebreaker Pass was actually banned by Liiv SANDBOX. Kind of an unusual ban here.
Yeah, and I think going into the point about Polar Halfpipe, I think the reason is there's this ledge where you have to boost off to get onto the top portion of the map, and if you don't have a booster at that time, you can't get on it. And let's say third lap you don't have a booster, then you pretty much cannot contest for the top spot. So definitely a bit of an RNG on that track, we could say.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's some elements of Brody's Gloom as well that do come in like that. There's the multiple angles for the mine tracks towards the end too, that you've seen on some of these other tracks where you're like, if you don't have a boost, if you don't have that magnet combo, it is very difficult. But in terms of about as basic as it gets for item, we are going to start things off on World Tour Gangnam Streets. Off we go. Seungha is back in here after having some health issues. Still not feeling 100%, but back in now and performing. Excited to see how he's going to look tonight here in item mode.
Yeah, he's had some back problems, but fortunately, Kart Rider you can play while sitting in the chair, so hopefully that'll do some good for his back as we see Knock leading out for Aura. We see Tech holding on to Angel and Booster.
Now, Knock in first at the moment. You can see he's just... this is a new meta where you just spam swapping between your items. This barricade actually getting a little bit of value here.
Yep, 2 of those barricades hit the players. Water bomb coming in and hitting Tech. Now, we see a lot of trade-off. It seems like a lot of aggressive items are being picked by our players today in this track number 1.
Yeah, it's a 3-lap track, and we had so many angels stacked up early. The players are actually using the angels early here. You don't normally see this, but it's funny how, like, because there's so many available right now, it's just a waste, and you need to cycle through them. So it's very difficult to also attack when this many are stacked up. As double magnets held onto by C's here as Tech with an unfortunate bump there. May have been intentional to move to the back of the pack here to get the additional aggressive item, but still losing a little bit of control.
Yeah, our players have not been able to pick up much lightning this time around to force out some of those angels. We are in the second lap right now. We're seeing a lot of magnets across the board, boosters, angels. Those 3 are the only real items being kept at the moment.
Yeah, that was a really big water bomb actually there. That's really disrupted the control that Aura had, and it does force out a single magnet to be used. C's now at the back with magnet in hand, and there's that magnet booster combo here for Tech as he's moving right around here. We're going into the 3rd lap now, and this is when you have to keep track of who has the magnet and the booster. Magnet rush is the term I think we're going to use here on Global for that final push with the magnet and the booster for first place. So we'll see what happens when that occurs here, because this is one of the most open maps in the item mode pool to actually make that happen. You have a lot of space to work with. Those are formations getting set up here. If you can make a line, you have a lot more opportunities for that final push. Insu's in first place right now with that said combo. Knock as well.
Yeah, and we have 5 players all holding on to that magnet booster combo. The only difference here is Hyunsu. He's got the booster with the banana. Not coming in hot. We have Hyunsu in the lead right now, fighting with Hero. Hero's getting slowed down by the magnet. We have JiMin now leading. Tech also trying to go for the rank 1, but it's actually JiMin who manages to find that angle.
It was really unlucky, I think, in a lot of ways for Aura there in the final moment because they had two players who had the combo, but Nock got UFO'd. He was the leader, and once he had to use his combo early, JiMin was like, well, I'm back up here, and unfortunately, I'm closer to the finish line. Just slightly, by the way.
Yep.
Just slightly closer to the finish line. And Tech, even though he had a really nice angle, and his attack was, I feel like, almost like academically better. It was actually much cleaner what he did there, but JiMin was just further ahead. And so he's able to win just by the hair of his chinny chin chin.
Unfortunately, no booster to turn things around at the end there. Was players just really using their normal speed to go through. And at the end, it was Liiv SANDBOX who had that initial lead, who managed to close out with a victory, which is a bit of a point of concern for Aura. It's only 1 point down, so they shouldn't be too concerned, but this is where they shine. So they need to find that comeback angle, and hopefully set number 2 is where they find that as we get ready to bring you guys into a fantastic track. I love this one. It's going to be World Tour London Night. Off we go into item round number 2. Liiv SANDBOX 1-0 up ahead Aura.
Yep. Aura having a very close loss in that first track. As we move into this one, we'll see if things change. It's another 3-lap track. And similar to Gangnam Streets, it has a lot of open space, but there are a few shortcuts on this map as well. So there's a lot of different angles for that final push. You could go, of course, for the Ferris wheel, which you guys will see momentarily. There's this bridge section here. And there are some obstacles, obviously, falling down to the lower part here. And there's the van that will come across the track, so you have to be careful about that time. Hero is taking the Ferris wheel approach and has quite a large lead right now, but he's not holding a magnet, so I think this is going to be something that eventually, when he falls behind, he's going to be fishing for. He's holding onto his shield for now.
Yeah, the big lightning coming out of Liiv SANDBOX there was not able to force out the Angel from Aura. They actually just tanked it instead. So a lot of members of Liiv SANDBOX now being able to build themselves a lead. We see Nock coming in with the fantastic missile to try to build that position again.
Yeah, Hero here did have to burn his shield and still fishing for that magnet. As we go over the drawbridge right now, Seas is the one who's taking first place. They're holding on to multiple Angels here. And sometimes you could see a team just try to brute force their way, and Liiv SANDBOX has even done this, into forcing an early advantage where you have such a large lead that even with the magnet combo, you're basically out of range of it.
Right. But
I don't think that's the case here, unfortunately, for Aura thus far, as Hyunsu is very firmly in the lead here. He's taking the outer path so he doesn't get water bombed. And he's just saying, all right, I've got one combo ready. We've got another one potentially going to be set up here with JiMin.
Right. We got 3 players holding that Magna Rush, all in that top 4 position. So there's going to be a lot of chaos up ahead. Water bomb does go missing. And now JiMin speeding up with the Angel, dodging out the missile. This is looking really close.
Yeah, JiMin really close here. Everyone's popping that Magnet Rush right now, but it is Seas who's in the lead. JiMin taking a wider turn here, and Hyunsu actually pulls around. Final Magnet's just going to be enough.
My, there was just a whole entire group trying to rush to that first place. It's like watching a Black Friday sale where everyone's trying to get in, but it was Hyunsu who managed to have a slight lead over 3 members of Aura.
And it has been very close, but this is usually where Aura finds the most success. And JiMin is making big plays each and every time here. He finishes 7th, but the timing of his Magnet Rush was actually very good, and Hyunsu was able to take control in the chaos here. But it has been very close. And I feel like if this ends up going to a 3-0 for Liiv SANDBOX, that scoreline won't really tell the story of this item match. I think it's much closer than the 2-0 would lead you to believe so far.
Yeah, it's definitely been neck and neck when it came to those finish lines. One bad news for Aura and the good news for Liiv SANDBOX is that our next track is actually picked by Liiv SANDBOX themselves, so they have a lot of confidence going into this one. It's definitely going to help Aura if they manage to beat them in their favorite track.
Yeah, that's a really good point. As this is the obstacle I was talking about with the bus that you can run into.
Yeah, Insu didn't have a very happy bus ride there.
No, certainly not. As these are the final moments here, a little bit of collision, but ultimately Sunga is able to get around Tech there with that final magnet push. The Magnet Rush, as we're calling it, when you magnet and nitro for that final angle. as all that matters is the first player that crosses the finish line. You save your tools for that moment. As long as you're in range, anything can happen.
Yeah, and today we've seen not a lot of usage of water bombs coming in huge, and Angels overall, they haven't been too impactful. It was mostly Magnet and Booster, but we're ready now for track number 4, Factory Brody's Blue.
Off we go. Liiv SANDBOX on match point in this series. All they need to do is win this track, and it's a 2-0 victory for them. A huge bounce back after a loss earlier this week. See if Aura can turn things around.
You see the item aces, JiMin and Tech, slowing down into that 8th and 7th position for the double item pickup. Now we see Liiv SANDBOX just throwing a bunch of water bombs around, actually manages to catch Hyunsu on that one.
Hyunsu pod. The UFO EMP is being held by Hyunsu at this moment in time. Probably wants to cycle that one out because he's actually going to trade it for a UFO, in fact, here. Might be able to burn one of these Angels early if they could get a more aggressive item here. A homing bomb. The JiMin is actually just going to hold this.
Yeah, speaking of aggressive items, 2 Seeker missiles. That's definitely a big upset for Tech trying to get the lead, but the Angel pop out from Hyunsu is able to block that out. Hyunsu building himself a sizable lead.
Did have to pop that shield here. It is going to get caught by both a UFO here and the water bomb. So does lose control. And right now it's only Nock who actually has that coveted combo here. I say that C's does have it too, but he's much further behind. But there's 2 angles here for this final moment for Aura for that Magnet Rush. On the side of Liiv SANDBOX, they only have Sunga holding this, but he's very far back in 8th place.
A lot of boosters across the board. I like that Hyunsu has a double boost combo going on. That could be crazy to see if he can maintain this lead in the first place position. We see 3 members of Aura up against 2 members of SANDBOX right now in the top 5.
Yeah, here comes the first Angel coming through. Insu's got 2 of those he can stack. They can chain these together here to try to buy enough space for Hyunsu to just push out of Magnet range with those Nitros. And I think that's what they're going to look to do. There's a second Angel being used. Gates open here for Hyunsu. And the Angel is going to block that last attack. Here comes the first boost from him. He's got a second and a banana.
Yeah, he held on to this boost till the last moment. He has another one here. I'm sure that's going to put him firmly into the first place unless C's manages to find an angle.
Wow, some very rare sweeping as well coming through from Sunga. You don't normally see this, but they realized, okay, if we hold 2 Nitros, we've got double Angel. We just keep him ahead because if you're relying on the double Nitro, if you get hit by any obstacle, you're going to need a Magnet to catch up. The Nitro isn't going to be enough, but if you block every possible attack by perfectly timing Angel after Angel after Angel, then boosting through, it's just beautifully played. And it's Hyunsu's birthday as well today.
Yeah, a solid win for his team coming in on his birthday. I'm sure that's going to be a memorable birthday for him now this year. A complete one-sided 3-0 item mode result.
And there was some great sweeping between him and JiMin there at the final moment, too, to make sure that no one could pass there because they had a big enough lead. And Liiv SANDBOX...
Oh, no, what are you doing to that dog, NEAL? Stop!
Don't hurt him!
But NEAL...
World's not even playing today!
Oh, no, maybe that is some type of world diss. Like, oh, you see what I'm doing? You don't want to fight me.
This is the dog in Dog World. Yeah, this was clean play, though, from Liiv SANDBOX, and a more unusual strategy that we don't normally see. Hyunsu also had the banana there as well for an additional defensive setup. That was kind of just luck of the draw that he was able to pick that up, but Liiv SANDBOX looking much better today than they did against the Kwangdong Freaks. And I think that Aura and Kwangdong are at a pretty similar level right now. I wouldn't say, well, Kwangdong's the tougher opponent. That's why this was easier. I think Liiv SANDBOX made some critical adjustments in the time between this match and their last one.
Completely different team. It feels like we're looking at Liiv SANDBOX. You know, we were looking at a potential face-off between NEAL and Hero as the Royal Roaders of 2022 Kart Rider League, but we didn't really see that matchup, especially not even getting to the ace mode where we would have seen that shine the most. So a big congratulations to Liiv SANDBOX finding a way to work through these tough moments when your players go through injuries.
Yeah, it's something that you feel really good about if you're still somewhat injured, right, as Sunghai is, but you can come out and perform tonight and you don't let your team down. And it's not his fault, of course, but like sometimes you feel that guilt as a pro player that you're just not able to perform with your team when they need it most, and you want to be the first Kart Rider Drift champions, right? And to do that, you need to well in the standings so you can have the best chance when we move into postseason. And Liiv Sandbox, one of the big favorites, and they showed it tonight, is if Aura had won, it would have pushed Liiv Sandbox back firmly into third. They would have been at a 50-50, 2-2 record, which is just almost unheard of for this team who's been so dominant since they founded in 2019. So a very solid win here and upset prevented.
Upset definitely prevented. Aura now with the 3 wins and a 2-loss standing. They are now pushed back to the 3rd place spot, which is a lot closer to elimination. So hopefully in their next matches, they're able to figure out a reason why, for instance, today, a lot of synergy that we expected to see from Hero and Knock just wasn't there.
Yeah. I mean, Knock played very well in speed, but Hero, he wasn't able to crack through. You know, C's had some decent moments too. Like, I think C's was arguably the best performing player for Aura in speed, despite that one error, obviously. But, you know, at the end of the day, with how good Liiv Sandbox is at both defense and offense, it's just hard to beat this team. And that's why, you know, sometimes you see NEAL hanging back at 8th place. And if you're new to Cartwriter, you're watching the global stream with us, by the way, tell your friends about this. We got to get the word out there. You're probably thinking, like, I don't know, these guys were telling me NEAL's the best player in the world potentially right now, but I see him in 8th place. But notice that when you get down to 500 meters, he's no longer in 8th. And he has a specific plan. He wants to avoid collisions. He wants to get his max speed up at the right moment so that when he actually goes for that final attack and final push, he's not worrying about acceleration. He's not bumping into anybody. He's truly a master of the game, and he performed very well tonight too. Sad we didn't get to see an ace match with him because I think that redemption story could have been there after his failure against Kwangdong.
Yeah, the term for him, it's called NEAL build for a reason because he always does these crazy things that nobody else does, like we've seen earlier with Inzu taking the outer line for potential new angles of sweeping that could have arisen. And that diversity coming in from Liiv Sandbox is what makes this roster truly strong. Everyone's a great runner and sweeper, so basically anytime that these players see an opportunity, let's do a 360 here for the fun of it. And they usually make it work because they're so talented.
Yeah, and that's the level of play from some of these veterans that have played Cartwriter for so long that you're going to see from them. Well, we already have so many players who've been playing for like 2-3 seasons of Cartwriter League, right? As we move into Cartwriter Drift League, that are starting to show their stuff already. Imagine how good those players are going to be, you know, by the time we get to our first regular season of Cartwriter Drift League, and then maybe what they look like in 2024, you know, 2025.
Whoa. We're definitely going way into the future.
Imagine what they'll look like in 2050.
We'll have carts flying by then, no longer on the tracks.
Hover Cartwriter Drift. Cartwriter hover.
You're giving some free ideas right now.
Yeah, take them next night. I didn't copyright any of this. So.
Just the gold item ideas. You know, I feel like, honestly, so far there were some concerns coming into item mode, but definitely we've seen a lot of good plays today from the players around the Magnet and Booster, proving to be a just absolute dominant meta right now in the items. I don't think there's any other items that can shake up the rankings as much.
But even then, Liiv Sandbox were able to, in their own special way, based on the Angel setup they had there and the double Nitro, try something different. It was very close. It almost didn't work, but you know, Liiv Sandbox is showing there are other ways, right? Kwangdong Freaks also approaching a very similar way when they played their last item match yesterday. But there is one clear meta, like you said, and it definitely is the strongest. But a great team like Liiv Sandbox, even if they don't actually get the right items, you know, basically due to RNG or the setup there, it's hard to actually get a Magnet if you don't have one, you're trying to control first place. That if you can have a good shot caller, in this case, basically 2 item aces with Sung Up taking that role with JiMin, maybe you could find a way, and that they did.
Yeah, they had the confidence there set up with the double Angel, as you mentioned. I really like that because if you go with the double Booster, there's so many different variables that can happen. What do you do if a Water Wisp comes? You can't just suddenly go to the left. You would hit a wall, and that would end your momentum. So I want to see more of these combos. I want to see especially some clutch UFOs today. Do you think we'll get that, Wolf?
I hope so. I really hope so. I want to see some clutch UFO EMPs. But that's going to be it for our first series. We are going to go to a short break. When we come back, ROX take on Finale Esports. Welcome back, Kart Rider fans. It's time for our second series of the evening. ROX Esports will take on Finale Esports here, and it is going to be a series that is very important for both of these teams. Finale sitting at 1-3, a very rough start to the season, but momentum definitely on their side.
Yep, they won in the previous match, so hopefully they have some more good news coming into them today. But we see the players of ROX Esports entering a very prominent lineup in the speed mode so far. In the item mode, not as much.
Yeah, has not been as successful for them, but if they can find some success tonight, either in the ace match or in the item mode, maybe they could take a win here that they so desperately need. They're sitting at 2-2. A 3-2 score would push them above that 50% marker. gives them a better chance to make postseason. But Finale, oppositely, their speed mode hasn't been poor by any means, but it has been item where Banana has come through for them in a big way. They started off at the beginning of the season not taking any tracks, and then were able to defeat Sensation in that last matchup, which is, again, one of our big teams here in KDL preseason. So taking them out was no simple feat.
As much as we love Finale so far, they haven't really shown any consistency. Their only victory came from explosive comebacks, and hopefully today we get to see a little bit of that consistency coming in, because if they're able to prove that they are a better team than ROX, who faces the opposite problem as them, it's definitely going to set their momentum across and hopefully give them a chance to fight for the top 4 position.
Yeah, that is the name of the game here. Like you said, they have won a single mode. It was that one item mode, and then they won Ace Match. They have not won any other leading up until that. So ROX definitely the favorites tonight, even though momentum, again, back in the hands of Finale here. As you could take a look at some of these stats in terms of speed here, averaging 9th, not the strongest team in our league by any means, but definitely have been more consistent. It's the item mode where they've struggled most.
Yeah, that really shows their downfall, because Jong hasn't been able to keep up at this top of the pack as much as we see a message coming in.
After a storm comes the calm. So saying, yeah, you guys won that last match, but it's time to slump again, I guess, is the idea with this one.
Yeah, they're calling that last one like an upset storm. It's not going to happen again. But Finale, on the other hand, they have to prove that they're not just a one-hit wonder. They're here to stay and continue to compete in the KDL as a strong team.
Yeah, they have some really strong players. Striker and Yoon, big standouts for me. Yoon, obviously the speed ace, and Striker having some great performances, winning that ace match critically in that last matchup against Sensation. And you have Vanilla, who's a pretty good sweeper. Banana, he really does feel like the main character of this roster.
Yeah, and their attacks per minute still sitting strong at first place out of all teams. Hopefully they're just able to find it in the more crucial moments.
Yesterday's ally has become today's enemy. We'll make sure to win. We will see. This is going to be, I think, a closer series potentially than our first one. I thought our first one was going to be closer than this one, but
right?
I think almost nothing could be more one-sided than what we just watched in our first series. So I'm hoping at least we are going to see a closer one. As here is our speed track list.
World Tour Boostwood at first pick for Finale. This is a track that we haven't seen too much as the first pick, so I'm excited to see what's their strategy around that. Bayside Bridge Run and Gold Rush also picked by Finale, while ROX opting for Boom Hill Tunnel and Construction Chaos.
Yeah, so Extreme Stadium off the table here. Those Finale taking out Rickety Rails and Zigzag Timberland, 2 of those maps that you normally do see banned by the underdog, like I was saying in the previous series. So I think they know that speed is going to be the tough one for them to take. Let's just try to lower the skill ceiling and take some of these tougher turning maps away.
Yeah, pretty much all the tracks that we're going to be playing in has that wide track, allowing for a lot of cutting and forgiveness when you mess up your drifting. And the bans were focused on the narrow tracks.
Yeah. Well, forget about your test tomorrow. Coming to watch the games today.
Yeah, to cheer on their team Finale.
Saying like, watching the games live, that's
studying
that's
too.
Test. Yeah. So as we move into this first one, we're going to find out which one of these 2 teams is going to take the lead here, take the momentum as we move into World Tour Boostwood. Off we go here. Let's see if ROX can finally solidify themselves here. We're not getting into item mode just yet, but if they lose speed, that is very concerning. So really need to take a lead here, as last time around they did lose in speed and were crushed subsequently in item, losing 2-0.
Yep, and this is Finale's track of choice so far, leading out with that 1-3. However, the ranks are fluctuating quite a bit. A lot of players neck to neck, trading the drafts and the drifts.
And Finale here had for a moment a large amount of control, but it's still really too early to call in terms of who actually has the advantage right now. I'd give ROX a slight edge here, considering that they have more of the players here on the top side. This can create kind of a 3v1 scenario for Yoon, the speed ace right now for Finale Esports, who's trying to actually get into that first place spot, but he's going to need some help from his teammates. And if that gap continues to grow here for ROX, breaking through gets all the harder.
Yeah, Jung, all he's doing right now is blocking with spell, sweeping out Yoon and Striker. Yoon manages to find a way to get to that rank 2 position, but still nowhere near Vega at all. I feel like ROX, all they're going to do is sweep until the last moment, and we're going to see a 1-2 strategy being attempted.
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. I mean, 1-3-4 also going to be good enough here. As Striker is trying to take some of these wider angles to break through, but he's unfortunately not able to do so. And like you say, if you just see the aggressive sweeping coming through here from Jong and Zuzi, the 1-2 win condition is there, but Yoon does break into top 2 now. Still, it's just not enough. They need more. They need Striker to actually push through, as that's who we're watching right now. But the collision here is really going to set him back.
Yeah, Yoon being the major threat to ROX. However, they have 1-3-4 on the side of ROX, looking really good. Vega still with that rank 1 position.
Yep, and this is 1-2-3 even here now. Let's look at that spin around for the block to guarantee the 1-2. In control from start to finish, really. We did see Yoon, the speed ace, come through, but the rest of the team just couldn't actually come up and assist. And Striker is usually that player, I think, for Finale all the time, is a player who gets up there and he's the one who's challenging where everyone else is struggling. But in this case, it was Yoon. But still, gonna need to see a better setup than this if you're gonna be able to beat ROX in speed.
ROX was so confident there that there was a shot calling coming out for Jung, just taking that bounce off the wall in order to disrupt as many members of Finale as possible. Coming in at an 8th place as a result of that, but it doesn't even matter because ROX still won in a very dominant 1-2.
Very dominant, as you say. Now we are moving into our second round here, and this is Finale's choice of map.
Hopefully they're able to find the comeback angle, but we see JiMin and Vanilla getting booped out into the right side. That was definitely a big moment where they fell behind quite a bit.
Yeah, and then there was that one additional collision that happened moments afterwards as well, preventing the challenge. So that was Finale's pick of Boostwood. Now it's ROX's pick here, so we could be seeing a 2-0 start here if something doesn't change in a big way as we move into Village, Boom Hill Tunnel.
In we go to speed round number 2. ROX 1-0 leading out against Finale Esports.
Yoon with an aggressive cut to the right there to actually try to block some of the members of ROX out, but is actually going to come back to bite him a little bit there. Isn't able to get a successful block, and he's going to fall significantly behind. ROX in really significant control of top 4 right now. And I mean, when you see Dizzy pushing through with Spell right now, JiMin is vastly outnumbered, so Vanilla, the sweeper here, is going to actually have to be an attacker and break through the line. Then he could focus more on that sweeping, but he's being cut off right now by Spell.
Fine. Spell going into the wall in order to crash into more members of Finale, and he's getting his job done. A lot of disruption and chaos going on in the middle of the pack as we see Jung and Nutsy continuing their 1-3 domination.
Jung here under attack by JiMin, and this could be what changes this one for Finale. That's all they need if he passes, but he's unsuccessful thus far.
Yeah, Jung getting into the line of JiMin, preventing him from getting across. Fantastic blocks coming out from Jung, and JiMin actually gets set back completely.
He's not going to be able to take the shortcut here, and now we are in the last stretch of things. We're about to hit the final 500 meters here, and Jung still in full control. Finale really dropping the ball here, unfortunately, and ROX are going to take the win here, 22-17. Really unfortunate there. The collision that comes through, really great play from Spell defensively there, and they weren't able to actually get into the shortcut, so they're just going to massively fall behind, and ROX is able to win now on their track pick and then move up to match point here for speed.
Jung had so many good blocks. They're constantly getting into the line of his opponent, and in the end, completely blocking them from being able to take that shortcut was absolutely pivotal as ROX managed to have 3 members out of 4 in that top 4 position. Up 2-0 right now, looking pretty commanding.
Yeah, pretty nice finish. Sub 120 is pretty good when you're on this track. And we're now moving into Finale's second track pick. So that's good news, right? As we move into Bayside Bridge Run. It's It's a map that's also a lot simpler, arguably, than Boom Hill Tunnel. They have a lot more chances, multiple laps here, but we'll see if they can perform. If they do not, ROX is going to take speed 3-0. Off we go on to this track of 2 laps that you have to race through, so a bit of a longer one this time around. A lot more opportunities for Finale, and this, of course, is their track selection.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of height, great lines being utilized. However, back in the 6, 7, 8 position, there was a big collision into the wall, setting back the players. They managed to recover with the booster.
Yeah, this is a really great start here for ROX, though, as Vanilla is the only one in the lead right now for Finale. And his role is not speed ace. His ability to hold on to these first place spots is not really one that he's known for, right? And this is where he's going to be very vulnerable. Now, Striker is actually in great position here to continue to defend him, though. So this is a great look here for Finale if they can actually succeed with said defense. As Striker's actually now been left on his by the wayside here with JiMin and Yoon falling behind.
And we have the members of ROX still
the
keeping
1-2
on their tail, but you know, definitely trying to prevent the 1-2 here, as we see a lot of fantastic blocks coming out of Vanilla. Now Striker in the lead as a result of that.
Yeah, the 2-3-4 here for ROX is exactly what they're looking for right now. So JiMin needs to actually continue to challenge this, and so far he's doing a great job of it here. But Vega takes a more aggressive inner, and look at the sweeping attempt here coming through. If they push JiMin back, it's ROX's win here, 3-0.
So many players are within draft range of each other, so the timing of when they go for that draft is going to be absolutely pivotal, because we are on that final lap, getting closer to the finish line.
Yeah, 2-3-5 on the cards here for ROX as we're getting very close to the finish line here. JiMin maintaining that lead, but he's pushed back, and now ROX in control.
ROX with the 1-2-3 looking absolutely phenomenal. I expect Jung to try to block out Striker as he takes the inner lining. However, he turns around and loses the momentum.
Yeah, he tries to aggressively take that inner with the block coming through. He just kind of concedes the point. You know, you do see this oftentimes in Kart Rider where you can get checkmated, actually just straight up, where there's actually no play. You either have to slow down, which is going to cause you to lose, or you have to try to take a tighter turn that you don't have an angle to. You're going to crash into the enemy cart or the wall. And that was basically just him forfeiting the aggression there, and as he crashed into the wall. It's not a mistake, he just knows he's checkmated, and ROX will win not only with a 1-2, but a 1-2-3 here. More points than are required massively here. And ROX have been dominant in speed. This is what you expect to see. This is what you need to see if you're a ROX fan. The exciting part is what comes next as we move into the item mode.
Item mode, definitely a shaky area for ROX, and I honestly have to say so far, it's too early for us to say Finale is great at item mode. They've only managed to have 1 win there, and it was pretty close with a lot of clutch upsets. So Finale really got to prove themselves today that, hey, we're better than ROX at item mode. We can go to that ace match again and try to take our victory that way.
I think Planty's a very good player. I think it hasn't really been his plays in particular that have caused ROX to struggle. It just seems the strategy isn't working out. They're not as practiced. They've definitely spent more time working on speed, which is arguably the less variable mode, right? The one that has less volatility. So you can respect it, but we'll see if their plans for today's match is going to be better than what we've seen so far. No pun intended with Plansy, as Banana, of course, will be coming in for Vanilla here. And I like the point that you made that I think recency bias makes you feel like Finale is a fantastic item team. Banana's plays in particular were amazing in that series against Sensation. But up until that point, they hadn't won a single set of item modes. So, you know, recently, very strong. Historically, throughout the entire league, hasn't necessarily been the case.
Hopefully they're able to find that victory angle, as they've only been able to pick 2 tracks in the item mode. We have Brody's Gloom and Pharaoh's Pass for Finale, while ROX getting to pick 3 tracks: Polar Halfpipe, Gangnam Streets, and Icebreaker Pass.
Yeah, starting off with Polar Halfpipe is a big statement here for ROX. And I feel like there's almost no two maps that are more different from each other than Polar Halfpipe and Gangnam Streets. So very different identity coming through here for ROX, but maybe they have some set plays they want to play with here as we move into item track. I think Gangnam Streets is a lot of volatility because it is so open, and those final moments can just be chaotic. And maybe if you're not the strongest item team, the best plan is to just hope you get that magnet rush and you pull it through, get that W, get that first one across the finish line.
Yeah, and I feel like ROX put a lot of emphasis on their track bans, taking out Istanbul Sunset Plaza as well as Mushroom Caves, which happen to be some of the easier tracks with less volatility. It's a lot more wider than a lot of these other tracks that we have seen. So I like that attempt from them. ROX definitely making things difficult for Finale as they step up into track number 1 of item mode, Glacier Polar Halfpipe.
Off we go. ROX struggling in item mode historically here. We'll see what they could do tonight as we're going to see a double item grab here from Yoon and Taemin to hang back.
It's so interesting because usually a team doesn't have 2 players all the way at the back to pick up 2 items, and from what I've seen, Yoon actually wasn't able to pick up a single item, it looked like.
Yeah, and a bit of a miss on the jump here, unfortunately. It won't end up being too impactful in item mode, but never like to see it. As Banana is the item ace, and he's usually the one who makes that final push for success. That's normally been the MO here for Finale. The item ace doesn't always do that. Sometimes they're just the shot callers, sometimes the ones who sit back and actually call out things like the storms that they're holding, being aggressive. But he hangs back and then aggressively pushes forward later. Spell, speaking of, does have that storm, is going to toss it out right now to burn some of these angels. Gets one away from Finale.
Yeah, Finale, they are currently sitting with 2 angels. Same story for ROX. A lot of magnet and boosters being held. Not a lot of offensive options being picked up here in the second lap. Yoon has that shield banana combo. You know, Yoon, he doesn't have any ways of defending himself against someone suddenly rushing him. So he definitely got to switch up the items moving into the last lap.
Yeah, Plan Z here holds onto the water balloon and a magnet, so probably was going to toss out this water balloon right as we cross the 3rd lap so that he could swap over and hope to pick up a nitro at the back of the pack here and look for that magnet rush, push through. Spell also has been holding onto this one for a long time. There's that water balloon coming through. Good avoid here, and ROX in a very nice spot here positionally. They have both magnet rushes available here. One going to be popped a little bit early, though.
Yeah, to get onto the top half of Glacier Polar Halfpipe, and now it's Dutsy versus Yoon as they are leading the pack completely right now in that 1-2 fight. Lightning coming out, Angel being traded.
Yeah, the Lightning coming through here, going to burn that Angel here, and this means that there's not a lot of defensive options here. Magnet going to be used.
Dutsy leading, but now it's Yoon actually coming in, blocking out Dutsy, and now Taemin manages to get the finish for his team. Spell, he tried, but he couldn't because there was a magnet on him, slowing him down. Yeah, and one of the magnets coming through there as well. I couldn't see who it was, but one of the magnet players on ROX actually was hit by, I believe, a missile. So it interrupted his ability to actually use that combo. And that's kind of a rare circumstance because usually you're cycling missiles out as fast as you can. Yeah.
But on Halfpipe, water bombs and missiles get a lot of value in these final stretches. Taemin's able to take this one very close in the final moments there. As also the fact that they were able to get a storm at the end there almost turned the whole tide of everything. But luckily, as you said, there was an Angel ready to deny it. Yeah, burning that Angel potentially a turning point as to why some of the more offensive item usage coming out in the end was able to be effective. As you said, I find water bombs to be a little bit less effective at the end because you have to be so precise with the throw. But things like Seeker missiles and water wisps, you just target them and they go to them. Yeah. And this is where we had that early usage here to get onto the... Oh, this is actually not that. This is the early part. Never mind. Yeah, everyone just tackled each other to death. It's a little bit of a disaster, but this does happen as... Oh, my. Striker with a spin here. Let's take a closer look. As Banana, like I said, he got hit. Yeah. Thought it was a ROX player who got hit, but it was Banana, actually, ultimately, who was taken out there during the magnet. Did have to reset. Rookie Dutsy, hashtag ROX win. I feel like Dutsy is a player that definitely we haven't highlighted much, so hopefully he'll be able to impress his fan today as we get ready to prepare our track number 2. This is picked by Finale themselves. It is going to be Factory Brody's Gloom.
off track number 2, Finale Esports in the lead over ROX Esports right now, and they are trying to prove in this track number 2 that they are the more dominant item mode team.
JiMin picks up an early magnet here, is going to be able to use that and cycle through. He gets double magnet, that is to say, so he can use an early magnet because he has both and hold on to the second one. So he's going to be able to aggressively cycle these items and fight for these early places.
Yep, and Yoon, he tried to dodge out of that water bomb. He drove to the left, but it wasn't enough in time. Now we have 2 members of Finale strongly in the lead.
Yeah, Striker also has a defensive shield here, which can be very nice for trying to hold on to that first position. As we have another double magnet, actually. This time it's Dutsi who has it, as JiMin still holds on to his. So we are going to have a lot of magnet rushes this time around. You could already tell. You could already see it. So we've almost got our whole roster holding the magnet right now. In terms of Angels, on the other hand, not so much. Only Yoon has one right now, so a lot of vulnerable players here when we get to that final stretch. Some of those magnet rushes definitely should be interrupted.
Yep, and that's why we saw Spell holding double shield for a while, realizing that his team does not have much Angel opportunities for him. So now he still has that one shield, which might be baited out by that water bomb.
JiMin here in really good spot to actually challenge for that final moment. He still held on to that magnet from early on in the race. Ooh, Striker having a collision there, but this is all about JiMin right now as we get to the final moments here, avoiding that crush. And Spell only double shield here, so not a lot of defensive options. Here come the fires coming through.
Right. Force the shield usage out of Spell. Now he's managed to pick up a Nitrous, which definitely helps in these final moments. It's Yoon versus Spell right now. Yoon getting slowed down by the magnet. That is going to help Spell maintain his first position firmly, but he doesn't have a booster left. Jong, it is him now coming in, speeding into the finish line.
Yeah, didn't have the magnet setup he needed, but with all the magnet trades going through, because so many players had magnets, people were getting pulled forward and backward, but he wasn't targeted, and he was able to actually just sneak around the right side. He got pulled at the final moment, but it was too late. So ROX gonna win an item match here. It's been a while,
yeah,
but they're tying us up.
Jong coming in to show why this man has been so redeemed as the speed player, rocking in that first place position over Striker, who almost had it in the finish line there. What's really interesting is that so far, ROX lost in the track they've picked, but they won in the track they didn't pick.
Yeah.
Things are not like lining up with logic right now.
There's a lot of volatility, you know, in item mode, and sometimes that is going to happen, especially when you see how these wins do occur. With JiMin having a really good setup there, and he held the magnet so long, and he was clearly the one they wanted to push through to victory there, but just too many magnets, too many ones pulling him back as he tried to go for that final rush. So didn't ultimately work out. And as you mentioned, the track selectors losing every time. If that trend continues, Finale is likely to take the lead, as ROX have Gangnam Streets as the next track here. This one is definitely very wide open. It is going to be about that final push and how many items you could cycle. I think Angel's much more important on Gangnam Streets with what we've seen so far this season. So we'll see what the strategy is going to be, which one of these teams is going to take the lead as we move into Gangnam Streets. And off we go. Tied 1 apiece here in item. ROX, of course, leading in the overall series. So Finale needs a win here, and they need it badly.
Lanzi managed to pick up double items, and both very high value, Angel and Magnet, as we see. A lot of Angels and Shields. You mentioned this, Wolf, that a lot of defensive items have high value in Gangnam Streets, and we're definitely seeing players hold on to them.
Yeah, Shields coming through. It's a track that has, in the early parts of it, some narrow choke points and some tight corners, but overall a lot more space than most of the tracks we play on, so you have a lot of space to avoid these water bombs, as Fizzy does here.
Dutsi with a fantastic move to the left side, manages to dodge that one. JiMin getting double lightning almost, it seemed like.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's going to take the brunt of that as Banana is trying to use a magnet early here to challenge for first. There's a missile to follow, and he will actually get control for now. And this is, like I was saying before, not the map where you always need to have the magnet rush to finish. Sometimes getting that early lead and trying to bait out some items early and holding on to defensive steps like JiMin has right now, double Angel here, is a win condition. So definitely a nice setup here for Finale thus far.
ROX definitely holding on to the Angels because the Lightning came out and they had the Angel to counter it, but they chose not to use it because this is only the second lap, and they want to have those defensive capabilities around in the third lap. So far, we're seeing a lot of magnets across the board. There's only 2 players with the magnet booster combo, though.
Yeah. I'd say having your Angels split across 2 players is way better than having them on 1 player as well. So I think ROX having a nice advantage there because JiMin doesn't have any other options he can use. He's going to have to use 1 Angel and then hope he picks up an item while doing so. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to chain those together and he will lose a lot of the momentum while popping those through. Whereas Dutzy has his own magnet he can use with the Angel to set him and his teammates up. As Plansy holds on to that rush combo, he's the only player who has it right now.
Besides Banana as well.
Oh yeah, Banana
really
does
want
pick it
to
up.
see Banana doing some bonkers plays because we are in the final lap. And at this point, if you lose momentum, it could be over for you. Barricades, it does get a 1 player.
Yeah. All right, JiMin, when are you going to pop that first Angel? We're getting very close here to the end of the race. The magnet is used aggressively here. Banana holding on to his combo.
This is the moment. You see our players popping the boosters and the Angels. Finale strongly in the lead, but Banana gets slowed down by the magnet. Spell with the Angel and the lead, but Banana coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, Banana just barely able to avoid all the chaos there, and the magnet was used onto him early. And because when someone targets you with a magnet, you're obviously, no one else could target you with a magnet during that time. So as his magnet wears away, he is able to boost through. Very, very fortunate for him that he's able to get through at the last possible second because it looked like actually it was going to go the way of ROX here, but timing works out. He's able to take that wide outer, and look at how close the time is between him and Spell. So incredibly close. Well, that's item mode. That's all it takes. Is you take that wide outer, you don't collide with anybody, survive that initial magnet, and he baited that one early, so well played.
Yeah, definitely well played by Banana. Very good strategy holding the items till the last moment. We've discussed this time and time again, how in item mode, it's not all about constantly attacking or defending. It's more about using them at the right timing. And Finale so far today, they've shown that they're definitely capable of that.
Certainly true. Finale, 1 track of item mode away for bringing us to an ace match. Will we see ROX tie it up? We'll find out right now on Desert Pharaoh's Pass.
Off we go into track number 4, a potential match point for Finale Esports.
Jong in the lead here, holding on to the UFO EMP. Sometimes it's actually very useful to have that as your starting item because UFOs do come through very often to control your lead. But ultimately, not going to be too important this time around. There's a great dodge here from the water bomb.
Yeah, everyone managed to dodge that water bomb very nicely. Once again, this water bomb only gets 1 person. Not a lot of great water bomb usage so far. JiMin strongly in the lead for Finale.
Yep, and he is going to pop that first shield. Holds on to the EMP for now. As yeah, we do have that spin attack here. Unfortunately, JiMin going to lose control.
Yeah, Spell, he definitely lost control after that one. Now, actually, he still somehow now manages to get to the first place, so it really didn't set him back much, having that Magnet Shield combo. A little bit of each defensive and offensive if needed.
Yeah, momentum isn't as important in item mode as it is in speed because of the lack of nitro boost, and drifting is obviously not that significant as,
nice.
JiMin trying to avoid, but is unsuccessful there, blocked out.
Yeah, he was actually booped into that water bomb little, and I really like that coordination coming out so far. A lot of our players are pretty much congested right now. No one really taking a firm lead. We're in the second lap. Jung gonna fall behind to 3rd place.
That was actually really cool the way that was handled by Yoon too there during the UFO, trying to actually block the rest of the members of Chasing Now, and he pops his own UFO as well, so trades it out. But Banana in a really nice spot here because he has both the Magnet and the Angel here, so he can swap to Angel, pop that, and then make sure that his Magnet usage is exactly the way he wants it to be. And if he's fortunate, he might be able to swap it to a Nitro if he uses it at the right timing. JiMin also holding that Magnet Rush setup here.
EMP wave for Yoon. That is not a great place. You don't want that on your 3rd lap, so we're going to see a quick swap out for that once the next item boxes become available. Yoon actually opting to stick with it.
He's pretty far ahead, so maybe he's hoping he can actually use that in conjunction with an Angel. As the Angel is popped here, he's very close, but Jong pushed back here. JiMin will actually take this, and Finale bringing us to an ace match again off the back of item mode.
now we can really start saying Finale Esports, they're good at item mode.
They really are. And the attempt there was actually really cool from Yoon, where he's looking to actually use that lead that he has with the booster there and the Angel coming through to then block any potential UFOs, which can go through anything. But ultimately, it is not able to... He's not able to actually succeed. But I just did get an update, though, that one of the ROX players actually was disconnected. It was Dutzy, actually, who disconnected there. So, unfortunately, we are going to replay this track. So, Finale haven't guaranteed us the ace match just yet.
But if Finale proves to be the item mode player team that we've seen them be so far, I'm sure even with the rematch, they'll be able to take this win for themselves. I don't think they'll be too concerned about this one.
Don't think so. They don't look phased at all either.
Yeah.
As you could see on the player cams, they're ready to win it again.
Win it again for the fans. Everyone right now highly anticipating the rematch coming in. So far, you know, definitely ROX having a tough task ahead of them. If they want to take it, the victory home without going to the ace match, they need to win 2 tracks in a row. Finale only needs 1.
Now, this is going to take some time because we are going to swap out Dutzy's PC just to make sure that there are no issues here. So we have a backup PC for all players that have the exact same settings, just so that something like this occurs, you don't have to troubleshoot. You just say, nope, bring it in the brand new one. So we're going to take a look at some of these fans here. We have a packed audience again, as we always do here for KDL. And we had some Western fans coming down to the studio, as we saw earlier. So tons of fans here for SUNGBIN as well, the Korean commentator, the main MC.
A lot of fans coming in, and we saw a fan for TenMin as well, a strong hybrid player for Finale Esports. He's been proving good, and you can see actually SUNGBIN here, a drawing of him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the best depiction, but it's not that bad. You know, it has some character. You know, I like it.
It holds the key features. You could kind of make a similarity between them.
And when you consider that SUNGBIN is just so handsome that he basically is impossible to draw, I mean, I guess it's the best chance you can get. I mean, try to make it more interesting. And our producer is telling us, like, look, maybe that's like what his driver's license photo looks like, maybe, or his like ID card.
Yeah, perhaps. I've never seen it, so I'm not sure.
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah.
He usually doesn't show people, you know. Most people don't like to show their old photos, but I don't know. Maybe I'll ask him after this if he'll let me sneak a peek. I've been commentating with SUNGBIN across multiple esports since 2014, actually, so almost 10 years. So,
yep,
pretty close to the guy, but nowhere near as handsome as him. That's why no one's drawing me on these signs.
Yeah, not a lot of fans showing up for the global side because this is Korea, and they have their esports for about almost 20 years now, a long history standing so far in the Korean KDL League.
Yeah. So as we swap Dutzy's PC in, just to give everyone an update on the current standings, Finale on match point for item. If they are able to win again, then it will, of course, go into an ace match. But ROX still have the opportunity to go back, and in the spirit of proper competition and you know, integrity and all that stuff, we are going to play this one again. We have had situations where a player is disconnected, but the team has won regardless, and of course, like, declined a regame. But in this case, with the losing team having a disconnect, in the interest of fairness, we are going to replay this one on Pharaoh's Pass as soon as Dutzy's computer is ready and booted to go. He's going to have to make sure all his drivers are correct for his mouse and things like that.
Yeah, and it's
or
a nice
his keyboard,
little
rather.
time where we get to see the individual players. We don't really get to see them too much once we get into the game, but now you can see members like Jung. He looks pretty happy. He looks confident. He's all right. Jung, you know, if ROX goes all the way down to the ace match, they're not that scared because they have Jung.
Yeah, he's won both of the ace matches against both Ding and Acidfly, and that's been the win condition for ROX because they haven't ever won item mode before. So they've always had to win their matches in the ace match.
Yeah, that was their only 2 victories so far. A fan of Jung coming in all the way from the KRPL era, recognizing his great performance that he's had so far. And even in the KDL, I'm sure that he's going to be making a lot of history.
That's the hope for those Jung fans, and maybe he can make some history here in the remainder of this item mode. As it looks like we're almost ready here, as Dutzy has rejoined our lobby as we remade that, and All settings are being finalized and tested here. Let's see. Looking at ready to go headsets on. And we should be playing the rematch here of Pharaoh's Pass shortly. And it's time to really turn things around here for ROX, because FNL looked primed in that last round to take it. And it looks like everything's finally ready now, Peter.
Finally ready now. We are definitely looking forward to this rematch happening in track number 4 again for item mode Desert Pharaoh's Pass. Off we go into rematch of item round number 4. It was FNL who managed to take their victory last time around. So hopefully for ROX, they want to see an upset here.
Yep, Striker gonna get double nitro with his Gambit. So unfortunately not gonna get any magnets here. As we did see a lot of success with JiMin trying to grab that early magnet and finding an early lead, but ultimately not gonna work out this time around, as we do see Banana holding on to an Angel here, and Yoon awkwardly having a UFO in second place. That's not usually what you want, and now he's got a Wisp as well. When you have your teammate in first place, this is arguably the worst item setup for Yoon right now. Now he can just hang back and use it if someone tries to pass, which we are going to see here.
Yeah, but then I used a lot of his boost early on to get himself a sizable lead, but Spell did manage to get just within range to use the magnet, so ROX, they managed to close the distance. Now Yoon getting caught off by the Banana.
Yep, Banana holding on to said Banana at this moment in time. Going to drop one down. The placement here not going to get the snipe he was looking for, though. And he's just going to hold on to this EMP for a little bit longer here, since he was in first place. As Yoon is holding on to a Nitro, it's getting chaotic in here in our second lap.
Yeah, there were 2 UFOs being held. They were finally being used out, so the EMP wave had some good usage there. Now we have Yoon and Striker strongly in the lead. We're seeing a mix of Shield, Nitrous, and Magnet. Pretty much the standard that we're used to, and that's what we should be seeing going into third lap.
Yeah, see, Flanzy has that setup here with the Magnet Rush. And keep a track on anyone else who can pick that up here, as we're in our final lap here, so this is really important if Flanzy can actually execute on this. He is the item ace. They're going to have to burn an Angel here for him to maintain both of those items.
Yeah, and Striker, he got caught off guard by the UFO. He was sent back. Now all that's left is Yoon, but he gets caught in the wall. Now it's Dutsy leading out for ROX.
Flanzy, let's see how good the execution is on this one.
Dutsy going for the inner curves, but Yoon is in the front, and Taemin with a fantastic block stops any speed momentum from happening there.
Yeah, saying no, shutting them down here. So even though we did have a rematch, the result is the same here. FNL, just the better item team, now essentially winning 4 times in this item mode. As obviously we had an unfortunate disconnect, that doesn't count. It was replayed, but winning the rematch in just as dominant fashion. I mean, normally it looked close because it's like, oh, okay, maybe he's going to pass him, but the block setup here for Yoon and Taemin was fantastic. Even though they didn't have the perfect item setup, they just knew exactly how to block that final approach there. And so it really wasn't close at all, as FNL just really taking this one away. Now the question's going to become, is it going to be Striker again? As Jung, I think, is the obvious choice right now on the side of ROX here as the ace. We could see Spell come out if they were going to use an underdog here, if they were going to try to pull something unusual off, because he is playing later on tonight, has been preparing a lot for speed, of course, for the solo match, but I don't think you risk it. I think you just stick with what's been working so far. Jung is 2-0 in ace matches, and I think he's going to be the guy once again. And based on the camera shot we have here, I'd say all but confirmed.
Yeah, a lot of attention and eyes being put on Jung right now. This man has been an absolute dominating force in the ace match. But for FNL, as you said, Striker being the most likely one to show up, but you can't shake the feeling that you could see a different angle coming in. Maybe there's a player in particular that played against Jung a lot. Maybe they are the kryptonite to Jung's masterful ace match performances.
That's the question. Acid Fly played it pretty close against Jung in that ace match where we had, ROX taking out Planet. But Ding was completely crushed. It was not really close in that matchup. Jung really dismantled him, and I think when you consider that on the side of FNL, Striker, I think, had an over-performance in that last win. They took out the enemy ace in speed for Sensation.
Right.
I think you're feeling pretty confident here, just picking Jung and saying, I could take you out, Striker, for sure, if you're going to be the pick. And if anyone else comes through, I'm not as confident that they're going to be able to put up the same performance. Maybe Yoon? We'll find out.
Yeah, Yoon is a speed ace, so he's the only other guy that we could see really coming in statistically. However, the track is going to be mined rickety rails, and this is a really tricky track, so there's going to be a lot of emphasis of skill being put on this 1v1 ace match.
Yeah, rickety rails can really get out of hand, and as you can see, taking a look at the track itself here, that final curve is often what decides everything before you get to the finish line, and that's where you see that final attack. So whoever has a lead there needs to block. And in the earlier parts, you could sometimes get a massive lead and even push somebody back with an attack, shove them into a wall in some of those tighter turns. But the final turn is really ultimately how the map is going to be decided, as we will have Jung and Yoon instead of Striker. So I think Finale kind of agreeing a little bit with our analysis that Striker overperformed a little bit last time around, and Yoon is going to be the safer option here for Jung.
Yeah, the speed ace of each team coming out to face it off, and I'm honestly excited for Yoon. I feel like Yoon has had a pretty good performance in the runner position, coming up against such a dominating force like Jung. It's now or never, the best chance to prove himself that, you know, there's a reason why he is considered the speed ace of Finale Esports. And as you mentioned earlier, Wolf, I feel like Rickety Rails has a lot of shortcuts that you have to take. And when you take those, it puts you into awkward angles. And if you get body blocked in those moments, it can completely throw off your momentum. So I don't think we're going to have a very close match where players are constantly within draft range. I think we're going to see one player get a really big lead at some point.
I think there's a pretty good chance you're absolutely right if we see a strong attack come through early. But this is it, the deciding ace match here on Mine Rickety Rails. Yoon takes on Jung here. We are off to the races here in our final ace match. The winner's team is going to take the win tonight.
Yeah, and we can see right now, both players pretty much opting to take the same lines. Yoon was able to boop Jung a bit behind, now taking that lead, but not a huge lead yet.
Yeah, not yet, as this is one of the trickier parts here across this bridge.
Yoon!
That was scary there for a moment. Oh, this is rough. He actually runs out of nitro. Now he has a massive nitro disadvantage. Notice the nitro charge here. You can follow Jung, even though we're not observing him right now, what his charges are. If you look to the top left of your screen, notice he is at least an entire nitro ahead of Yoon here. I mean, this might just be it. Like, there is almost no recovery from this. So now Yoon has to take very tight and aggressive inners here. Catching up is easier than battling for first because you have a lot more space. You can always guarantee the inner because Jung isn't going to be blocking you. But stuff like this is the kind of mistake that can cost your team an entire match.
Yoon jumped into the wall, has absolutely taken out all of his momentum right now. Yoon, he needs to do a lot of cutting to get the extra gauge boost for himself. This is where the short full drifts really come into play because you want to maximize the drift.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And Yoon actually does take some extra cuts here to try to build up that nitro. So he's actually gotten now a nitro advantage here. And that's the second place advantage that you can have, is you're not going to have any collision with the player in first. You can actually aggressively try to catch up and take some risky turns. Jung, of course, going to be looking for that defense of that final moment here. 500 meters to go. That's that final turn we were talking about. But the distance, I think, is frankly just way too great. I don't think he's even going to have to worry about it. He just says, slow down. And that's just a one-sided ace match here. One mistake from Yoon. And the punish comes through. And that is Jung winning his third ace match in a row. 3 wins for ROX. All 3 on the back of this player.
A huge gap for Jung right there. The little cheeky slowdown at the end, really showing how he felt about that whole match. Completely in the lead as soon as the half point of the first lap ended. And Yoon, he tried so hard, but I can see it definitely was breaking him to see that his opponent was so far that he can't even see his body.
He knew exactly what he needed to do, but knowing alone isn't enough when you have that much of a deficit. Almost a whole second ahead, and that's with the slowdown there.
Yeah, and actually, Jung, he still managed to get more drifts and boosts done than Yoon, which we talked about, you know, Yoon needing to greed for a little bit extra of those booster gauges, but Jung was the one actually still able to do those more.
Bit of an apology here from Yoon to the fans, or for Finale, because they are almost certainly eliminated now from postseason contention, taking this down to 1-4. No longer possible to even get that finish of the 4-3. So can't get a positive score anymore. 1-4 means that the best they can hope for is that 3-4 finish, and that's if they win every matchup left. So not even going to be able to break 50. ROX, on the other hand, moving up to 3-2, a very much needed win for them. They weren't able to turn item mode around, which is still a big glaring hole for them.
Yeah.
But at least Jung delivers once again in the ace match. And this team's heavily criticized for relying on Jung, but when he's this consistent, I mean, can you blame them?
You really can't. Their 3 wins so far all came from Jung winning them the ace match, so I'm sure that Jung was feeling great about himself, truly representing his team as the speed ace, no doubt. Whereas Finale, you have to feel bad for them. So far, they're only managing to find success in the item mode, and once they trip over in that ace match, it's kind of over.
Yeah, the gap between Sensation here and Finale is somewhat significant as well. So as long as it changed Finale, not only we're talking about postseason, but they might find themselves in last place. I think it was a respectable play from Finale. The speed mode wasn't successful, right? But ROX is much stronger there. Item was clean. But both of these teams having big weaknesses, I think that if you want to make postseason, ROX still has a great chance. But in terms of winning the whole thing, still looking a little exposed. And I don't know if we'll get a replay of that mistake from Yoon, because it does kind of just add insult to injury there. But it is stuff like this in ace match that makes it both extremely stressful, but also very exciting to watch, right? And even if you're a ROX fan tonight, you're like, man, I want to see Jung win. I don't want to see Yoon lose. But it can be just the nature of the beast sometimes.
Yeah, it's really interesting because after today, I feel like the match result between Liiv, SANDBOX, and Aura, it wasn't that devastating because they are still 2nd and 3rd place, still contesting for that postseason, whereas the match between ROX and Finale was absolutely huge because now it feels like Finale has almost no shot at all to making it to that postseason, whereas ROX, they have a really good fighting chance.
Excuse me, yes, I do agree with you. And I'm trying not to drink water on camera because it's really unprofessional, but don't worry, there's no labels on this bottle.
Go ahead. I mean, so I feel like, honestly, today, Finale, there's at least one positive thing for them is that they are at least good at the item modes. So when it comes to fighting teams like ROX who are struggling in that item mode, it at least gives them a chance. They just need to keep practicing a little bit more within their runner and speed aces like Striker and Yoon. Really, if not for that one huge mistake setting such a large gap, you got to assume that things could have been definitely much closer.
Yeah, I think Vanilla also kind of underperforming tonight, and it's weird because he actually played very well and often was at the front, but that means everything has gone wrong with the starting block, or out of the starting block, where you're basically trying to get your speed ace in first and Vanilla in somewhere between 2 to 4, right? Because that's where he's going to be the most successful, and he has been a very good sweeper. I think cracking for Finale, how you're going to operate as this team out of the start is where they seem to be at their weakest, because their recoveries have been good. When Vanilla is in position to sweep, he does very well, but they're just not winning any speed basically right now. So I think that's easy. I would argue fixing speed is easier than fixing item because that's the core of Cartwriter. But I would also argue that it's way more important.
Right.
So, it's like it's not doomed, but it is going to be hard for a while. And I think even if this team doesn't make postseason, I'd say maybe they stick together. Maybe they can make another run next season.
Yeah, it's definitely not been a runner problem. We've definitely had members of Finale contesting that 1-2 spot fiercely. It's mainly been a problem of not having the backup coming in from the 4, 5, 6, 7. And honestly, you have to wonder at that point, your team is constantly losing out in the sweeping battles. And that is now at this point a statistic. It's been proven time and time again. So hopefully they're able to practice more of the coordination between attacks. Who's the one actually going to now step up and go in the front and become a runner, while the other players, they really just need to target one player that could come in later into the top position, make sure that they have no shot at all with sick moves like we saw Spear do, 360 spin, hit that one guy back, and then bounce into another guy, and that's how you do sweeping at its best.
Or like we've seen from players like Sungha when he's at his best, obviously, and NEAL, where even though you're hanging back and you don't have full control, you have really strong attacks, and you know the track well enough to where you can go from 8th to 2nd to 1st so easily, so quickly. And it's okay if you have a weak start, if you have players who are able to then turn that into an aggressive attack. And part of a good sweeping is preventing the ability to actually stop. The best part about a sweeper is they can prevent the runners from actually coming up and challenging those top 3 spots. But part of being a runner is actually defeating the sweeper, right? Like there is a real strong matchup for some of these sweepers where you're like, okay, the enemy team's runners are very weak. I'm a great sweeper, like we saw today, where it just feels doomed. It feels like, well, I mean, you can't even crack these guys. Like, what are you supposed to do? So some improvements do have to be made, because I agree with you, it's not a runner problem, but I think it's a team communication problem on how they're going to start, because every other team seems to have a very clear approach right as soon as we see the go button hit. And, you know, getting some early cuts, grabbing that early nitro, and some players are set to cut so they get a faster nitro, but not to take first, because if you do that, if you go early with the nitro, then you're going to lose control and drop down to like fourth. But if you're the sweeper, that's what you want, because you want to have that early nitro, but then you can block people out. So the strategy like that, I think, might not be as heavily discussed, or maybe the execution just isn't there yet for Finale, but it's going to come. We're still in preseason, right? It's still early days.
Yeah, and on the other hand, for ROX, so far they've definitely had a pretty easy time, we could say, for the speed mode, but for the item mode, it's been rather disastrous, and you have to wonder why, because Jung, he's usually great at coming into that first position, which is all you need to do for the item mode, but it's just not working out so far.
Certainly not. It is going to be ROX taking the win here, their third of the season, but we are not done for tonight. We have our second match of Solo coming up just after this short break. Welcome back, everybody. It's time for our solo match. We had yesterday our first half of the round of 16. Today, we're doing the second half. Keep in mind, this is a double elimination format now, so the players who lost yesterday are not eliminated, and the players who will be eliminated today from the group will have another chance against the 4 players who lost yesterday.
Yep, you described it perfectly. Our players wanted to pretty much stay in the top 4 and keep moving on, advancing into the finals, where if they win, they have a grand prize pool of 10 million won, Korean won, which is nice. And of course, they get a nice little title in history for themselves.
Yeah. Massive. To be the first champion of Kart Rider Drift would be massive. We are still, of course, in the preseason, but a champion is a champion. As you could see, the players who advanced yesterday were all of our pro team players. All of the teamless jersey wearers will be sent down to the losers match. Today's group, I think, is a little bit less defined in terms of who our favorites are, but we do kind of have a tier list in terms of who has won a title, who has been in a finals, and then who has had neither, right? And I think that's kind of the line that we're drawing today across these players in terms of historically who have been the favorites. But there's a lot still on the line. Is yesterday Cool set 3 new track records.
Yeah, I mean, Cool winning 5 out of 6 tracks as the first place finish. You cannot come in more dominating than that, Cool. He's setting a new milestone right now for players to try to catch up to.
Look at his pose as well. He's just saying, I'm bringing the track record down. Faster times.
Yeah, for sure. And for the other tracks, you can see a lot of domination coming in from the players of Liiv SANDBOX and Guangdong Freaks. You know, the top 2 teams that we were looking at, and individually, they're great as well.
Yeah, it's crazy that Liiv SANDBOX hold almost half of all of the track records. As,
yeah.
This is that split I was talking about earlier, where NEAL and Perfect are Kart Rider League champions, right, in terms of the solos. Then JiMin, Knock, and Spell have all had at least 1 finals appearance. But for Speed and Ding, they're still looking for their first opportunity.
Yeah, Speed and Ding definitely the underdogs of this group of round of 16. And I think that so far in the team matches, they have shown their capabilities. But when you're up against such strong adversaries, then it's definitely harder to make a name for yourself and a good position.
It certainly is, as we're going to break down each and every player who will be participating in this group. Starting off with NEAL, defending champion, the player who has been so successful. Look at his finishes. This is, by the way, just for this season, as the top first place finishes, top podium finishes, and he was, until yesterday, the best first to second leading points. He was 16 points ahead of second place.
And here next we have the player Speed, the first place finisher of Group D. He is the only player from the Team Sensation to be able to advance to the round of 16. So he's pretty much representing his team at this point, and hopefully he'll be able to continue on his dominance.
That's the hope for Sensation fans. Ding will be the player we take a look at next, who has 3 first place finishes this season and has been just overall a pretty consistent player. And he's shouting out Kosu and Luning, I'm going to make it to the winners for you, as 2 of the players who did fall short yesterday. So definitely friends with those guys and wants to give them their best.
Yeah, Ding so far has been doing better in KDL than even in the normal Kart Rider League so far. Our next player is JiMin from Liiv SANDBOX asking Teacher NEAL, did you see my straight boost? Which is kind of like, you know, you're able to, you know what, you probably know this one better than me, Wolf. You go ahead.
It's hard to explain this, but it's the ability, of course, to use your boost and as you're straightening up and utilize it in a way that's very effective. And I'm not going to get into the weeds of this one, really, but he's doing very well with those. And Jikbu is a Korean term for that straight boost. As Knock here, observer mode, no, just bumping without thinking. He's just teasing the fans who are saying that he's like a god. He can see everything. He's all-knowing and omniscient. He's like, nah, I'm actually just bumping. I just do what I want. He's got this banner here. Very modest, but I think Knock, definitely one of the dark horses of this group, a very strong player.
Yeah, Knock always managed to find the higher rankings. Is no surprise as we see SUNGBIN now. He is saying, I'm the 3rd oldest here by age. Hey, youngster, Hyungs will advance first. There's a term in Korean for this. It's kind of like, it's like when you care so much about your age and you keep like trying to make that your trait.
Yeah.
Called gonde.
Yeah, it's not a positive term. It's kind of like boomer. It's not exactly boomer, but it has the same connotation as boomer in English as perfect. I just love this moment, and a player who is, I think, one of the ones that you look at here going, okay, this guy's accomplished and achieved a lot. He's been a great player, a part of Kwangdong's roster for speed, and he is setting up a lot of collisions as well. You can see he actually has the highest collision rate and still able to qualify. That's saying a lot about his ability to recover. The guy is very strong, and I think not as same as Nock in terms of Dark Horse potential, but definitely up there.
Yeah, he is the only one who's without a team, so we hopefully get to see some things that are perfect. But of course, we have Spell next. I want to be good at playing Kart Rider Drift. Same. Honestly, I'm having so much struggle, and I relate to Spell.
This is a cry from help, cry for help from Peter here. He's like, please. I just got my license.
I literally just got it. So now I can finally play some of the tracks these pros have been playing on for forever. And my goodness, there's so many shortcuts that you need to know about.
Certainly. Perfect fan here.
Right.
Perfect's last finals appearance was in 2020, so it's been 3 years since he's been able to make it there. It would be a great story for him to make another return to the finals here after that 3-year gap in Kart Rider Drift. Got a lot of fans here, despite being, you know, a player who hasn't been able to live up to some of the hype, I think. And as we move into our first race here, Village Boom Hill Tunnel, we'll see if NEAL is going to start things off with the lead or if we're going to see an upset here in our first race. Off we go. NEAL with such fantastic position in his group, taking first place multiple times and having the biggest differential between first and second in the group stage. We'll see if he can start off with a bang here once again. As we talked about in team speed, even if he has a slow start, his finishes are where you really need to watch out.
Yeah, our players are just colliding with each other all over the place right now because everyone was within draft range, but now coming out of that tunnel, we do see that 1, 2, 3 once again being contested. Everyone is on high heels.
Yeah, Spell here in first right now, but as you can see, as you just mentioned, with everyone being this close, a lot of collision here. We do not have anybody putting points in acceleration like we saw Insu do yesterday, so
right.
You know, these collisions are actually more detrimental, as Ding is really trying to avoid any collision he can here while also sitting up defensively as we're all in draft range here right now. As knocking at the door here, Spell and Ding neck and neck as SUNGBIN is going to try to take an outer line here potentially on this next turn to grab a pass.
A consolidation forming into the top 4 here. Ding still leading out so far. I can really see that Spell is waiting for the perfect opportunity to use the draft because he wants to overtake not now but later when there's so many players right behind him.
All right, here we go. Ding maintaining that first place. Nock with one last attempt and he's
there
successful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nock finds that draft angle at the right time.
I don't care if he says that it's just all a coincidence, he just bumps into people. This guy sees the game in ones and zeros, man. He sees the legends of Kart Rider, the drift marks on the track. Except it's his drift marks on the track that people are seeing behind him as he crosses first place.
And if you see his pose, it kind of looks like he's emphasizing his big brain, and he absolutely had a big brain moment there, coming in at a clutch moment, such a close time if you look at it, almost 0.1 second difference.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could approach those final corners on Boom Hill Tunnel, but the most common approach is to actually just go diagonally when you go through those so you can minimize the chances of collision and you don't actually have to chance taking a riskier drift where if you hit a collision with one of the other players, you're going to get set way back. But he actually has took the tightest possible turn there at the final moment and was able to get ahead. As he's just teasing us now.
Yeah, the reason why he's called the Super Observer mode, definitely showing why so far. And we're waiting on him to pick the next track. I wonder what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. As, you know, we haven't seen, you know, a ton of these underdogs winning this early to know where we're going to go. Like, sometimes you know where NEAL wants to go, for example, but we haven't seen Nock pick a map in a while. It is going to be Rio de Janeiro here for our second race.
Kicking off round number 2 of solo match, it was Nock who was able to get in that first place position last track. But keep in mind that NEAL holds the best track record right now in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, very difficult name to say oftentimes for us here on the English broadcast, but you and I both shared the burden once here.
Yep.
As NEAL and Speed are neck and neck here this time around. This is a one-lap track, of course, so you can see the attention here on the first place runners. As you can see at the back of things, you do have Nock, our player who did won the first track. There's still a lot of race to go here, but it's a relatively short track as mentioned. And NEAL, he is pulling out all the stops here early as we're gonna have this big U-turn now. And he maintains the lead. It's one of the trickier places to actually hold on to that advantage.
The record setter proving to be why his drifts have been perfectly angled, how he's been able to maneuver around these corners with absolutely no problem at all. Now we see Spell and Nock coming in. Of course, Nock, we keep mentioning him as a player where he just kind of stays out of the group and the body fights, and he just looks for the perfect timing to enter that first place.
Yeah, he just avoids everybody. He sees the angles. He's going to need a big draft here off of Speed. Can he maintain it here and get that pass? We're looking for Speed. Great defensively.
Oh my!
And it was so close, but Speed will actually take the first place spot. But for Nock, man, back-to-back here in top 2. He's going to move up to 17 points now. And for Speed, a huge departure from his first race. He's actually going to move up to 11 himself. So we do have 2 clear front runners now.
A consistency definitely forming here already in the solo match. Nock proving to be a formidable opponent. NEAL came in also 3rd place. He boosted almost Nock up into 1st place, I thought, but Speed was able to still maintain that lead just barely by 0.05 seconds.
Yeah, Speed's positioning was really good, and what was most incredible about it to me was how great Nock was at actually forcing that that final turn. It looked like he was actually maybe going to do it, and that collision you mentioned with NEAL did come through. But Speed just didn't falter. He didn't mess it up, and it got pretty intense there on that final turn. And he blocked it. He blocked the advance there, even with the draft coming through.
Right. And then we have a fan for Speed coming in. They want a speedy end of their day. I can't really blame anyone for wanting that, but so far in the standings, we have JiMin, Spell, and Perfect, each sitting at 3-2-1 points, and rank 4 already is at 8 points. So you have to keep your eyes on JiMin, Spell, and Perfect. They need to find the comeback angle now. It's already too late if they keep dragging it out.
Definitely true. JiMin, a player who I think really surprised a lot of people with his qualification for the round of 16 since he is the item ace, but looking good up until this point. We'll see if he can turn things around. We're moving into our 3rd track, Mine Gold Rush. Moving into our 3rd round here for the 2nd part of the round of 16 here. So far, Nock in the lead, holding on to that 17-point and 6-point rather over Speed differential. As NEAL is going to be the one in the lead here at the beginning of the lap.
NEAL so far, he's held pretty much the most ideal lines, not losing momentum at all in his drifts. And you can see that's why he's maintaining that 1st place position, even increasing that distance between him and Speed now.
Yeah, just trying to get out of draft range here as we're going to move into some of these more aggressive turrets as we move into the mines themselves here. Speed taking the lead, but NEAL taking a very aggressive inner here, chaining that drift into both turns, but isn't able to get the pass.
Yeah, but he manages to get up onto that stadium, and now we go into our final portion of the 1st lap. We have SUNGBIN, Ding, and Speed leading the pack with Perfect right behind. NEAL did fall behind all the way to 8th place, a collision, bad one.
Really bad one there from him, and he tried to take a very aggressive inner there outside of the portal. And outside the portal is where you have the most agency, where everybody's lined up like that. If you take the right RNG call, you know, like, or am I going to be alone here? You can get a huge lead, but unfortunately he took too big of an inner, hits the wall, and now his chances of making top 4 in this race are very slim. He's moved up back to 6 here though, but knows the difference between him and Ding is pretty massive now.
Yep, and we see Ding and Speed pretty much within draft range of each other. Not coming in as well. We know this guy, he's like the hyena that comes in at the perfect time, as we see the players taking the optimal lines here. No real bad mishap happening to anyone so far.
Yep, here comes that portal the 2nd time around. We'll see if NEAL can actually make that aggressive turn happen this time around. I mean, we might not see, because we're at the end here. Ding massively in the lead, and no one else can catch him. And that's just going to be that. Was going to give NEAL a chance to redemption here on this one, but he's just too far behind. The story is not about him, and in fact, he will finish in 8th place here. And NEAL really struggling tonight in terms of what we had in terms of expectations. I think most people would put him up in at least top 3, saying this guy's probably going to get out of this group no matter what, but top 3 is what you expect. And unfortunately, he is towards the bottom of the standings right now. This is going to be a -1 to his score here with an 8th place finish. Speed up here getting a +7. You can see our cumulative scores right now. We had a top 2 that was very clear. Now we have a clear top 3.
Yeah, so JiMin, he was about 6th place before this race, and now he's up all the way in 3rd place because he finished the race also at 3rd place. So that was a huge boost to his rankings. Now, a lot of the players like NEAL, they are definitely struggling only with around a 7 to 8 points range, and that is pretty much where the 4, 5, 6 is consolidated.
Yeah. It is very tight there in the middle. It's going to be about these next few races, and we're moving into World Tour Terracotta Twister to see who's going to push that lead further on our 4th round.
Kicking off round number 4 of Solo Match, Knock firmly in the lead with 21 points.
Yeah, Terracotta Twister has been kind of like the Dust 2. It's been the final destination of Kart Rider Drift League. It's the one that we see all the time in speed mode for team. It's a track that everyone is extremely familiar with here, so I think this is where you could really show your stuff.
So far, Knock and Speed, they're the ones absolutely in the lead so far. It's just SUNGBIN and NEAL trying to do the catch-up, but there's a lot of distance to be closed. They don't have the draft distance. Wow, SUNGBIN getting a big knock into the wall.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate, dropping back quite significantly as Knock is taking these turns very aggressively here. He's got a nice lead, and he is just going to continue to push it here as NEAL, once again, hot on his heels. But if NEAL tries to aggressively fight for first here and makes another mistake, man, his chances of getting out of this group, this 8-player section of our round of 16, drops significantly.
Wow. NEAL manages to find the draft angle. Now he's firmly in 1st place, and you can see he's taking a different line from the different players because he doesn't want to give that draft advantage. However, JiMin now coming in, he manages to find the window.
Yeah, both NEAL and JiMin tied at 8 points, like you mentioned, just on the edge of that qualification. So if both of them end up in top 3, it's great for them, but getting 1st place, getting that extra 10 points is so massive for them. As Knock is threatening right now, playing spoiler to these 2 players at this moment in time.
Yep, and we can see SUNGBIN trying all he can to catch up. He is now within draft range of Knock, so he can definitely do some catch up. This is the tricky part of Terracotta Twister. We've seen a lot of attacks come in around these turns. NEAL,
he's just insane. He actually took the narrowest turn you could ever want, and he actually doesn't mess it up at all, maintaining that lead. 500 meters to go. Knock looking for a draft attack here with JiMin. The blocks are real from NEAL, though.
Wow, but Ding manages to come in, and he's going to get that 1st place finish, and NEAL, he's going to take that 2nd place, but the NEAL build, man, that was insane.
That was insane. What he just did was insanely risky. And sitting at 8 points before this, if he messed that up, I mean, he fell in the pit there or actually had that a collision, with how close it was, and it was a photo finish. When you guys see the stats come up, you're going to see just how close these players were in terms of time.
Right.
It would have been catastrophic, but because he played it so well, he's able to get a top 2. Now, he moves up to 15 points here. JiMin is going to move up to 13. Ding going to pick up 10 himself and maintains 1st place here now, passing Knock. So when you look at the difference between NEAL and JiMin, it's tiny. That's the difference between 4th and 5th is 2 points right now. So we are really going into a tight one here.
Yeah, it can absolutely go anyone's way. The 1st place is only at 28 points too, so we do have a fair amount of tracks still left. Ding and Knock sitting at that 1-2 position, 28 and 25 points each. I don't think Ding and Knock are worried at this point right now because they have such a strong lead so far as we get ready to move into track number 5, Desert Construction Chaos.
Off we go here. This is going to be such a critical race. You know that you have at least 3 races left because it is going to end when the first player hits 50 because Ding is sitting 2 points behind 30. Even if he wins the next 2 races, we have a 3rd to follow. So there's still a lot of group left to play here. But for players like Perfect and Spell, now's the time to turn it on here. And unfortunately, both of them are sitting at 7th and 8th. Two of the big underdogs here. But you got to call it out, right? I mean, these players aren't performing at the level they need to.
Yeah.
They're going to qualify for the winner's match.
Right as you said that, Wolf, they were sitting right there in 7-8. But fortunately, they did manage to move up a little bit now, as you see a lot of players in that front. You know, you can't avoid the collisions here because the tracks are so narrow, and you have to take so many turns so fast. So we're going to see a lot of fluctuations in the distance being covered by the players.
Lots of aggressive braking here to avoid collisions. Knock maintains a pretty significant lead right now. Speed hot on his tail. Ding underperforming compared to what we saw from him in the last 2 tracks, sitting back at 6th place here. But Knock, man, it feels like everything is about him tonight. He has just been so consistent. Even if he doesn't cross the finish line first every time, his time spent in first seems to be the highest. And he's just being so consistent here. SUNGBIN is going to take the lead for now.
SUNGBIN right now, he's fighting it out with Speed. They're so close to each other that you can almost not even see their name tags, and the draft range really being saved by the players right now. I don't think they're using that just yet. As we enter the tricky part, this is where the collisions happen. So as you said, Wolf, they gotta press the brake button.
Yeah, they gotta press the brakes here a little bit. SUNGBIN still holding on to control right now, but Knock hot on his heels here. As we're starting to see some collisions come through, SUNGBIN's lead is really coming up big for him because he's not getting hit here. He's not losing that max speed as we're getting to the last final turn here. And JiMin actually taking control here with some big collisions coming through. Maybe he can get an upset win.
Yeah, JiMin, he's got that booster saved up as well. He's got a huge lead. Knock trying to go for a bit of a tricky angle. The cutting coming out to build himself more booster gates to try to catch up. But look at JiMin, he's so far ahead.
Yeah, that was a huge opportunistic moment there for JiMin as a few collisions came through. He saves his boost, is able to pass without anybody touching him. And once you get a lead like that and you've been able to hold your boost, you've got to be feeling like you're on cloud 9. You're like the luckiest person in the world. I get to pass everybody without using my resources. They then have to use resources to catch up, get back to their max speed, and I could just use my boost to guarantee I'm going to get first. So, bit of an upset win, I'd say, here for him. It's a new track record as well here so that he sets with this one at 2:09. Ding and Knock, though, in top 3. And it's starting to feel like we know who's getting out of this group in the top 2 spots. Everything else, though, below, it's still up for grabs. NEAL, Speed, and SUNGBIN so neck and neck here. Only 4 points between the two of them.
Yeah, JiMin managed to get the first place finish, giving him 7 more points than NEAL, who came in 5th. So surprisingly, though, NEAL still did manage to keep that top 4 rank. Now, he is fighting it out with the 5th place position at this point, trying to maintain that point lead, but there's not a lot of tracks left anymore.
Certainly not. Our next one is going to be Forest, Zigzag, Timberland. We'll see if our top 3 continue to look the same here. For Perfect and Spell, it's time to turn it on.
We begin our track number 6 of Solo Match. It was cool that managed to set a new track record, so hopefully in this group as well, we'll get to see a new record.
Now this track, like the last turns we were looking at in our previous one, is very narrow, especially at the start of the first lap. That's where you start to see players who get a lead, like Speed and Knock, can actually create quite a bit of distance because everyone else who's behind them kind of gets funneled into this bottleneck where they actually end up colliding with each other with no one going for additional acceleration like Insu yesterday. Those collisions can start to add up. Now, I say that NEAL is able to sneak his way here into first place as Speed actually goes for an aggressive attack onto Knock here and does not succeed and will give up his 2nd place.
Yeah, NEAL and Speed, it's really crucial that they're in the top 3 right now because these 2 players are fighting for that top 4 spot. NEAL sitting at 4th place with 18 points. Speed only 1 point behind in 5th place. So if NEAL gets that first place finish over Speed, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, it really is. Ding as well, you know, our current leader, he is looking to end up getting in here in top 4 to put himself in one first place finish of ending this series. But unfortunately, down in 6th right now is NEAL. Looks like nobody can crack this guy right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's completely out of draft range for Knock, who's in 2nd place. Knock doing a fantastic job blocking out JiMin and Perfect from overtaking him.
Yeah, NEAL's just up there like, thank you guys very much. I have this much of a lead in this narrow bottleneck that you guys just keep bumping into each other. I'm so far away from everybody that it just doesn't matter. And if he can maintain the range here away from the draft, it's just hard to catch up as Knock trying to get ahead. You can see Nox like, I want to take these inners, but Spell is blocking me, and Neil's like, thank you very much. I've got a sweeper in solos.
Everyone is just sweeping each other right now because they're trying to get the better angle to go across, but everyone keeps coming and saying, nope, nope, you're not going ahead of me. And NEAL is alone sitting up there as a king, still uncontested. As long as he doesn't make a mistake, I don't think he's going to give a draft range.
Doesn't look likely as NEAL is just in full control here. No one anywhere near. You can see even in picture NEAL's first-person view here and how aggressively he's taking these turns while he has that lead. He knows he could take these because he's not going to collide. Nock pulling ahead of Spell here too. Looks like he's actually going to grab second as a collision, unfortunately, coming through as well. SUNGBIN dropping back.
Yeah, that's been sent Spell back all the way, but Nog still maintaining that lead in second place. It seems like NEAL's going to come in at first, followed by Nog, SUNGBIN, and Ding for the top 4.
Huge here for NEAL. His first place finish of the group will take a 28-point score. Nog moving up to 37, and Ding with a 4th place finish will pick up only just 4. So
oh no,
we're getting very close.
Yeah, and Speed came in 8th place, and Speed was the guy trying to contest NEAL for that 4th place spot.
Yeah,
now the point difference.
Yeah, it's a huge turn.
It's almost over at this point. The top 4 is starting to consolidate themselves. Things are getting really heated up. Of course, Nok constantly being a consistent top 3 finisher. That's not really helping things. He's making it so that the 50 points are even closer.
NEAL here gets this win. Ding only picks up the 4 points, and I was pretty sure he was sitting at 35, but I wanted to wait to see the standings to be 100% sure. So that's really critical because he's at 39, which means that we'll have 2 races left no matter what. I always have to set the stakes for that because sometimes you can have a scenario where only one player could determine whether the group ends at that moment, and now no player has that power, at least for our next race of NEAL's track choice. But yeah, you mentioned the gap that is set here with NEAL moving massively ahead. This is really critical. Now he's got, as mentioned, his track choice of Factory Facility 5 here. As we move into our next track, we'll see if some of these players in the back of the pack can catch up, but it's looking pretty doomed right now. Off we go, NEAL. See if he can have another performance like the one he just had with the choke points there. He pulled so far ahead. He set a new record. The Spell with a good start this time, and he so desperately needs something like a first place finish.
Yeah, NEAL was going for the cuts there to build himself that lead in the booster gauge, but he knocked into one of the opponents, so that was a quick stop.
Oh, speaking of knocking in, NEAL!
That is not good. That's going to set him back so far behind as we see 7 players just doing their own thing while NEAL is back in who knows where.
Yeah, Speed is definitely super hyped about this because that's exactly what he needs to happen for his qualification. Now, that alone isn't enough. If NEAL drops down to 8th and takes a -1, he is still going to have to perform well. And that, so far, he is looking to maybe pick up a top 3. This is a single lap race here. Unfortunately, NEAL on his choice falls so behind on it that it might be too short to recover.
Yeah, not only that, Spell fell behind as well, so now he is the 8th place finisher, it seems like already. So right now, it's all about the fight in the top 5. We have Ding leading out so strong, which is huge because Ding is the group leader at 39 points. If he takes 10 points here, then he's pretty much almost guaranteeing a 2-track finisher.
Yeah, looks like it. Ding still in control. Nock hot on his heels here, but we don't have a lot of track left. 500 meters here. Nock needs to get this draft to succeed, but Ding pulls him out of the range.
No, SUNGBIN could not get the range for the draft, and Ding manages to come in first place. A lot of fire being put right now on the heels of players.
That was really well played by Ding because he knew that at that final turn, if he takes an unexpected path, rather than taking the hardest inner to guarantee the victory there because he has a lead and he just wants to push further into the lead, he's like, if I just deny this draft, even if I take a slightly slower turn, the draft is the only way they can win as long as I play this right, and that he did. So he's going to move up to 49, as you said, so only needs to finish in top 6 to end this and take his position in the next round, the winner's match, of course. For NEAL, even with that rough start, he's still going to maintain top 3 here. The difference between JiMin and SUNGBIN is 3 points. Speed could still qualify here if he gets a top 2 spot.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's anyone's game, but it's looking like we're likely going to have one last track of Ding's choice, which make things worse because if Ding's picking it, you assume he's going to get top 6.
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages you get from taking that first place spot. We're still working on getting all the players here finalized in the lobby.
Right.
This is so intense right now.
Yes, and our fan was able to predict DDing coming in, moving up into the upper bracket of this group of 16. You can see the fingers actually shaking out of the nerves of how close and fierce this competition is so far in the solo match.
It has been really intense, and NEAL is now rejoined in the lobby. Had a problem getting into it, but now he is set and ready to go. We're going to be jumping into this one very soon. But for these players at the back of the standings, for Perfect, for Spell, you know, it has been a rough time. I think time is up now because, as you mentioned, DDing only needs to get top 6, and this one is done and dusted. It's over as we move into what will likely be our last track, World Tour Boostwood.
Off we go into the potential game-deciding track.
Now, also, even if DDing gets bottom 2, if Nock gets top 2, it's also over. And if he gets 10 points or 7 points, then it will end. So there's just a lot of things going against Perfect and Spell here. And even if Spell gets first place, he won't be able to pass Speed.
And he's doing that right now. Nock is first place with NEAL.
Yeah. Really, right now, this is kind of a race in terms of qualification between JiMin and SUNGBIN. I think that's, and Speed, of course, we mentioned earlier. These are the 3 players who we have our eyes on the most right now, because we are so close to moving up to winners or dropping down to losers, all decided by this one race.
Wow, DDing was sitting in 6th place, but he manages to catch up to all the way in the front, now contesting that top 4 spot. Oh, Nock coming in with a completely different angle. However, he didn't manage to break into first place.
Yeah, DDing is actually starting to pull a pretty big advantage off here, but he's still in draft range, so I think that might be short-lived here. He's going to have to try to take some unexpected angles here to avoid it. As Nock, man, he just sees the future. He's avoiding everything here as we are all just trying to chain these drafts together around these few turns as we're on the final lap right now. Speed in 2nd place. This is massive for him. If he gets this top 2 finish, that's exactly what he needs to qualify. He's actually in first now.
Speed, he's definitely putting on the pressure right now. Perfect coming in as well. Everyone's still within a fairly draftable range, I would say. And this is the final lap, the final moment.
Oh, Speed in first, SUNGBIN down in 6th. Speed, man, he has got to be feeling good about his chances. If he can just keep himself composed here and maintain this spot, I think he's going to the winner's match.
JiMin, however, he's going to be able to overtake and set behind the momentum of Speed a bit. Now Speed coming in again with the draft, trying to overtake, and he just needs to maintain it. He's blocking JiMin, and there it is. First place finish for Speed.
Yeah, and Speed and, you know, the difference here is between Speed and JiMin and SUNGBIN is so negligible. But with SUNGBIN, both his weak finish here and Speed and JiMin's finishes coming through, I think that is going to guarantee themselves top 4. We'll have to wait till all the points come through. I want to confirm this 100% as we have things come up on the screen. But this is exactly where you wanted to be if you were Speed. A track record to clutch it out and push yourself into top 4. So let's take a look. Yeah, there he is, 1 point ahead of NEAL at this moment in time. NEAL is not going to the winner's match. Speed and JiMin are both going to, with great top 2 finishes here, push up to top 4. And SUNGBIN with a really rough performance. He is also knocked down to losers here. As who would have thought DDing would be our first place winner tonight? Nock and DDing, definitely the top 2 racers, trading blows tonight. But man, it came out to one final clutch from Speed and JiMin. 2 players who looked like might not even make it.
A complete upset definitely happened here in round of 16, match number 2. 4 players that we thought, you know, some of them, sure, we would see them moving on to the winner's bracket, but as you said, DDing coming in with such a dominating, consistent performance today, and Speed with the final clutch, being able to beat out NEAL by a single point. It was so close.
Yeah, only Nock, who could see the future, could have seen this one coming.
True.
But if I told somebody, like if I actually went back to an hour ago and I told you, by the way, I've seen it, I just came from the future, NEAL does not advance, but JiMin advances, you would be like, no way. I'd be like, also Speed advanced. You'd be like, all right, Wolf, like, it's not funny anymore, man.
Yeah.
But I think we had serious upsets tonight, for real. And that's like what Speed did in that final race is like the definition of clutch for solo. That's when everything is on the line, you just throw all the pressure away. You're like, I'm not even looking for a top 3, top 2 finish. I need first place I'm going to do it, even though JiMin, who's also competing with me directly, most directly, I'm going to play it so well. SUNGBIN comes back. NEAL, unfortunately, a few mess-ups here in this group isn't going to advance. And Speed, by 1 point, makes it through. That is almost an unheard of story.
That is pretty much what happened here. Ding and Knock, they were consistent throughout every single match, maintaining the top 4 pretty well. But for JiMin, Speed, and NEAL and SUNGBIN, there were a lot of mess-ups. They kept trading places, getting that top 3, but sometimes going all the way down to the 8th place because of an unfortunate collision. And at the end, the players in JiMin and Speed who were able to focus harder coming into those final laps where it mattered, it really paid off because they managed to lead by just a point and 5 points for JiMin.
Now, I'd say the chances of NEAL and SUNGBIN actually advancing from losers are pretty high. These are two incredibly strong players. Going into a losers matchup where I think they are definitely some of the front runners, but unfortunately for Perfect and Spell, some of our big underdogs here, they did not perform very well in groups. Like, they narrowly got through, similar to how Speed finished here. And the performance for them, they were almost invisible in the group, unfortunately. So a lot has to change for them before they go into that losers match if they're going to have any chance of advancing. They're the real Cinderella stories now.
Yeah, and the one highlight that keeps replaying in my head was the moment when NEAL, he failed to get up on that bridge and he collided, so it put him at a full stop and he had to press accelerator again. And on top of that, he missed the shortcut, so he was pretty much guaranteed that bottom 2 spot, and that really set things apart for them.
Yeah. Let's take a look at today's results and kind of sum everything up as we'll go back to a happier moment for NEAL, which was when he was able to prevent the upset here of Aura, where they took this one 2-0 at the beginning of the night.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a match where we expected more coming in from Aura potentially, but Liiv SANDBOX, they found their form again, proving to be the kings.
ROX, on the other hand, despite a bit of a weakness continually here, only picking up 1 set of item, are going to be able to win it in the ace match. Big mistake there in the ace, unfortunately, for Finale, just making it a very one-sided affair at the end of the day. And that was how our team matches went.
Yeah, Yoon, we thought we could see a lot more exciting matches from him, but unfortunately today with that big mistake, he never really got a shot. As we take a look at the standings now, Guangdong Freak strongly in the lead. Following behind is Liiv, SANDBOX, Aura, and ROX in that top 4.
Yeah, and for Finale, that loss really hurts. You know, making postseason seems very unlikely, but last place actually a possibility here. Unfortunately, a Sensation still on that 3-series losing streak. Let's see if they can bounce back later on. But now we have our winners decided. So our winners matchup is going to be Hyunsu, World, Insu, Cool, Speed, Ding, JiMin, and Knock. So I think our winners of match 1, definitely the favorites. In match 2, some big upsets.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if you're the players in match number 1 who advance into the winner's bracket, you got to be kind of happy with today's result because you really don't want to go up against players like NEAL and SUNGBIN, Perfect. These players have done so well so far, especially in the solo matches. You have to wonder, how far can the Dark Horses take this? Are they going to continue to upset and actually become the new best solo match players in KDL?
Yeah. And there will potentially be an opportunity for revenge as well in the finals, you know. Some of these players who move up to winners might drop down and you have NEAL come up, make it through that loser bracket run. Could be incredible. We will, of course, on Wednesday have no solo match. It is our triple team match day. So that is going to be at 7 p.m. on the 26th of April. These 3 matches will be what we have then.
Yeah, some huge names coming up there. Match number 19 is going to be Planet versus Liiv SANDBOX. Liiv SANDBOX trying to keep up their win streak and hopefully catch up to the Guangdong Freaks, who will be going up against Reboot in match number 20. Will Reboot be able to finally give a loss to the Freaks? That is the question. And for the final match number 21, Sensation versus ROX. 2 Rocky teams coming in. However, ROX did manage to get a win today.
Yeah, it's weird because if you asked me a week ago, it would have been like, yeah, I think Sensation's still the favorites. Now, I don't know if I could say that, but at the same time, I think that series is, of these 3, very much the closest. I think the first 2 could end up being one-sided affairs of our very strong Liiv SANDBOX and Guangdong teams, but Sensation versus ROX, I think that's the one where I look and say, this definitely could go either way.
Yeah, it's definitely going to go to an ace match, right?
I think so.
Yeah, ROX, they might lose in the item mode while beating out Sensation in the speed mode, whereas Sensation, if they actually manage to beat ROX in the speed mode, that is going to set a lot of good momentum for them because I'm sure it's going to be a morale boost knowing that their opponents can't really do item much.
So that's going to do it for this week's Cartwriter Drift League preseason. I hope you guys enjoyed the start of the round of 16. We're going to be back on Wednesday with 3 team matches. We'll see you then.